Jose Huizar present. Paul Koretz will be joining us soon. And today we are going to learn about and perhaps act on the proposed exclusive franchising recommendation that the Department of Public Works has recommended. We have a series of panels, after which we intend to have, well, let me tell you what the panels are first. The first panel will be an overview from the department, which will include the Bureau and HF&H consultants. After that, there will be an overview of worker safety and safety oversight that will include Southern Cal, Kosh, American Reclamation, former sorter at American Reclamation, and Alex Salgado, a former employee. The third section is an overview of environmental impacts of commercial waste collection practices with representatives from NRDC, Sierra Club, Angelinas for a Clean Environment, and Pacoima Beautiful. And the fourth will be impact of proposed exclusive franchise commercial waste collection and recycling on small haulers, where we'll have the Bureau, Ron Saldana from LACDA, Matthew Katanjian from AAA Disposal, Steve Tucker, Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling, and Greg Good, Don't Waste LA. After that, we will have public testimony. If you would like to speak in public testimony, please fill out one of these cards. The sergeants can provide you with those and indicate whether you are for or against the proposal, and we'll be happy to call you in order. We will, for those of you that have prepared 10-minute speeches for the public comment period, everybody will be allowed to speak for 1 minute, so please pare your 10-minute speeches down to 1 minute. And if we don't get too many more cards, we'll expand that to 2 minutes. Let's see. After that, then the committee members will comment. We'll comment whenever we want during the course of this process. But with that, I'd like to invite Public Works to present their overview of the proposed commercial waste collection and recycling through exclusive franchising proposal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council members. Andrea Alarcon, President of the Los Angeles Board of Public Works. As you are aware, in February of this year, our board unanimously supported the recommendation that Council authorize us to move forward with the implementation of an exclusive franchise system for both commercial and multifamily solid waste hauling. Our report, which was forwarded to the Mayor and is currently under review by the CAO, contains 13 recommendations to authorize the development of a draft RFP and ordinance and allow the Bureau to begin the CEQA environmental review process. It is important to note that a key recommendation, number 11, directs our Bureau to return with a more detailed franchise implementation plan, which includes a timeline, staffing and funding requirements, the proposed franchise area boundaries, and any recommended exemptions to the system. However, in order to develop those key program components, a threshold, crucial policy decision must be made on how the city's waste hauling system should be structured. It is the recommendation of the Board of Public Works and the Bureau of Sanitation that the city implement an exclusive franchise system. An exclusive system will allow the city to maximize waste diversion, allow us to reach the city's zero waste goal by 2025, require clean fuel vehicles, and minimize the impacts of private waste collection trucks by maximizing routing efficiencies. So rather than having a hauler service 100 clients spread throughout the city, creating zigzag routing and unnecessary vehicle emissions, customer accounts would be concentrated into a defined geographic area so as to create more efficient routes, reduce truck emissions, and reduce the impact to those trucks on our streets, which I might add is a significant consideration. In fact, a recent report found that one garbage truck exerts as much stress on our streets as 9,343 SUVs. It goes without saying, then, that reducing truck traffic will reduce further degradation of our streets. Furthermore, the proposed exclusive franchise will also promote safe working conditions for employees collecting or handling solid waste. The recent loss of the 16 and 22-year-old Ramirez brothers at a composting facility underscores the need to ensure that our city's waste is not only diverted, but is handled in a safe and responsible way. Under our franchise agreements, these types of facilities will be subcontractors and thereby subject to our city's living wage and workplace safety policies. But most importantly, they would be subject to inspection so that we can ensure compliance and accountability. It is for these reasons that the Board of Public Works unanimously supports moving forward with an exclusive franchise system. We hope that today, as a threshold policy, you will support the proposed system structure, and we look forward to working with you to develop the system's intricacies. I'm joined by Enrique Zaldivar, the Director of the Bureau of Sanitation, and various members of our team who will provide additional background information and answer any questions. Enrique?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Can you check with me?
Thank you, Commissioner Alarcon. Enrique Zaldivar, Director of the Bureau of Sanitation. I want to have the privilege to talk a little bit about the history, the young and recent history of the solid waste industry in Los Angeles. On the one hand, I look at myself and say, my goodness, I've been around all these major events that have taken place in Los Angeles and transformed our industry in the last 25 years. But I've been with the city for 26 years, so I have lived most of them. Some of the events that have occurred in our recent history, some of you were part of. If you recall the state law AB 939 that completely transformed the way that we managed solid waste in the state, not just in Los Angeles, that completely transformed our industry and became a new model for our business. Closer to home, you will recall in the early 1990s, under the leadership of Councilmember Alarcon, at the time we closed the last remaining city-owned landfill, Lopez Canyon, and we went through a rather difficult debate, but in the end, it was the right decision for the city, and we have lived with it. As we look back, it was obviously the right decision to make. In the early 1990s, in the early 2000, we began with the conversion of our solid waste fleet to clean fuel. That was also a significant change in our industry, and as we look back at it, we realize how beneficial that has been. Also in our history, we went through a significant change in how we do the actual collection of solid waste, and with that brought the introduction of automated collection, which made a significant change to the health and safety of our workers. It used to be a commonplace that our workers could not stay in their career until retirement. Automation allowed them to live and work an entire career and retire from this job. I want to say that, and Councilmember Alarcon's staff, Deputy John De La Rosa, was the person who led that whole effort for the city of automation, and we were one of the leading and the largest installation of automated collection in the nation. So we're proud of all those changes that have occurred in our past, and we can all now reap the benefits of them. What we recommended to the board, and the board approved, which is the recommendation before you today, is one such significant event. And we believe that as we go through this debate and this analysis, that you will find that the best model for the city is, in fact, the exclusive franchise model. With that, Dan will talk about more of the makeup of our industry in the city.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Enrique. Dan Myers, Bureau of Sanitation. One of the things that I want to be able to go over with you today is when we talk about an exclusive franchise or any type of system in the city of Los Angeles, to really talk about who the haulers are, what the franchise system will do, and what it won't do. I did have the opportunity to pass out, hopefully everybody got it. It's a flow chart of waste haulers in the city.
redesign program.
How's that? Sorry about that. In the city of Los Angeles, waste hauling is conducted by really two entities. One is the Bureau of Sanitation, and the other is our permitted waste haulers. Bureau of Sanitation collects from single-family and smaller multifamily complexes. Everything else in the city is collected by permitted waste haulers. Currently in the city, there's approximately 800 permitted waste haulers. That number has grown significantly over the last year when the city implemented a new construction and demolition debris ordinance. Through that ordinance, any contractor that hauls construction and demolition debris must now obtain a permit. Under the system before the C&D ordinance was adopted, contractors did not need to get a permit if they hauled their own waste. Also, under the system that we're proposing, there are a series of exemptions for various material types. And one exemption is that for construction and demolition debris. Because of the adoption of the ordinance, it was felt that the city already had a very good handle on the collection and recycling of construction and demolition debris. All construction and demolition debris in the city right now must be taken to a city-certified processor and cannot go directly to a landfill. So what we have is, of that makeup of over 800 permitted waste haulers, there's a very large percentage of those that just haul construction and demolition debris. There's approximately 700 contractors that were added through our C&D ordinance. Prior to the C&D ordinance, there were approximately 150 what we'll call more traditional waste haulers operating. Those are ones who own trucks and their primary business is collection of waste within the city. But of those 150 waste haulers, approximately 100 of them primarily haul only construction and demolition debris, leaving approximately 50 waste haulers in the city that haul commercial waste, the type of waste that we're addressing under the proposed franchise system. So as you go through the table, you'll see that what we're talking about affecting the affected waste haulers are approximately 45. Of that 45, also wanted to point out that the top 10 waste haulers in the city collect 95% of the waste in the city, commercial waste. And that's based upon reports that we get annually from our waste haulers that report to us what their annual gross receipts are. So based on gross receipts, the top 10 waste haulers collect over 95% of the waste in the city. The remaining 35 collect the remaining 5% of the waste. For a more detailed breakdown, on the reverse side of the flow chart I handed out is a breakdown of the approximately 45 waste haulers in the city that have reported collecting commercial waste. Also wanted to touch on, Commissioner Alarcon and Enrique did a very good job framing where we are now. But I want to give a little bit of history on how we got there.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I just need to do a little cleanup here and make sure that we're on the same page. The item before us is a motion that I introduced on November 16th, which reads, and it was seconded by 6 council members, I therefore move that the CAO and the Bureau of Sanitation be requested to report to council with an assessment of the commercial solid waste system redesign program recently put in place in the city of San Jose, including a review of the HF&H report, the City of San Jose Commercial Redesign White Paper that led to that system, and explore, now we're getting to the part that you're already covering, so you're kind of working in reverse order here, and explore whether including the commercial sector in the proposed multifamily franchise would help the city reach its zero waste, environmental, and financial goals more expediently and efficiently. So that's the matter before us, and we really need to state everything in the context of this motion. It appears that you're making the item before us your report, and that is not what is before us. It is part of the assessment, but the item before us is really about the San Jose project first. So I really want to hear more about what's happening in San Jose before we get into your recommendations with regard to the city's commercial franchising proposal.
Mr. Chair, my apologies if there was any miscommunication as to which item we are addressing. We are here to respond to the motion, but we just wanted to give a bit of background. We do have joining us at this table our consultant, Laith, who is a representative of HF&H, who does have a presentation to offer. He has the perspective on the San Jose as well as other jurisdictions.
Okay, I thought maybe we should actually start there since that's what the item before us is, and also to give us some perspective. I really haven't heard a complete report either in private briefings or otherwise about the San Jose system, and so I think it would really help me to better understand your proposal.
Laith?
So whoever you want to represent that would be fine.
Laith Ezet with HF&H Consultants. In our report, for those that are interested in reading the details, and I'll summarize them in a moment for you, finding number 8 on page 20 of our report talks about the San Jose system. In short order, the city of San Jose had approximately 20 waste haulers providing commercial services. The city of San Jose ended up going through a request for proposals process.
Right into the mic. Speak right into the mic, please. Thank you.
The city of San Jose went through a request for proposals process to select one hauler to collect all of the commercial waste citywide. They also went through a process to select a processor that could process all of the organic waste, food waste, and those sorts of materials. They completed that process. They selected their contractors, and I believe they are working on final implementation of services. They went through a multi-year, almost a 10 or 12-year process to get there from the time they first issued notices to the waste haulers that in 5 years the city was reserving the right to go to an exclusive franchise. They investigated a number of different options, whether or not to go exclusive or non-exclusive. But in the end, they went with an exclusive service arrangement. Some components of the RFP that they issued for the exclusive arrangements included a 75% diversion rate, a 10 to 15-year contract term, exclusion of the construction and demolition waste from the franchise, a living wage requirement, and consistent customer rates for the same levels of service. There was also a fixed annual franchise fee payment included that was provided to the city. So that's kind of the synopsis of the San Jose process. Should I move into the discussion of the key attributes of the exclusive and non-exclusive franchise systems that the city of LA is considering?
Let me make sure we covered San Jose. And what is the size of San Jose as compared to Los Angeles?
It's substantially smaller. I have a chart in here that talks about the 10 largest cities in all of California, of which San Jose is one. The city of San Jose has a population of 959,000. It's the third largest city in California. Los Angeles has a population of approximately 3.8 million, so roughly 4 times the size of San Jose.
Okay. And you said they chose one hauler.
One hauler to collect all of the commercial refuse. That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Krikorian?
Just wanted to ask a follow-up on that size differential issue. How many commercial enterprises are there in the city of Los Angeles?
It's estimated that there are approximately 100,000 commercial customers, and in San Jose there are approximately 8,000.
And of those 100, the 100,000 includes multifamily as well as commercial, and about 30% of those are multifamily. Is that right?
Yes.
So we've got almost 10 times the number of business customers in Los Angeles as we do in San Jose, right?
Yes.
So 4 times perhaps in population, but vastly greater geography and 10 times the number of commercial enterprises. And then I think, although this is not part of this discussion, as the chair has just pointed out, the proposal that sanitation is discussing combines multifamily and commercial, which would make it about 12 times the size of the San Jose model.
Correct. San Jose does have an exclusive multifamily arrangement already in place, so they were only looking at just the business portion of the arrangements, whereas here in Los Angeles we have an open multifamily and commercial system.
So even before they began their 10-year process, they already had the field experience of having a franchise agreement for their single-family and multifamily.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And was their multifamily exclusive?
Yes.
So they have 2 exclusive agreements?
Correct.
They have one in place and one that is being
And a
implemented.
new one that went through through this recent process.
It's been approved, but it hasn't actually been implemented?
They were scheduled to start July 1, 2012, the actual service implementation.
Okay, so your proposal, or the proposal of the department, is to establish, at this point, 11 districts?
That would be the department's proposal.
That's what's in the report, and so that would, just in terms of sheer numbers and proportion, it sounds like it's almost on the same track. In terms of size and scale.
Assuming that the 11 zones are of equal magnitude.
I would never make that assumption.
Right, but that would be true, but there's a continuing conversation as to the size of each of the 11.
Well, clearly one of the issues that we need to be cognizant of is the size and complexity of Los Angeles and the diversity of Los Angeles, and our geography is quite different. All of those factors have to be taken into consideration.
One last piece that may be helpful to you for the scope or the size. The total gross receipts of the system in San Jose, the business piece, was estimated at $55 million. And the system here in Los Angeles is estimated at over $200 million. You may have a larger number of businesses here. The cost of the systems in Northern California generally is higher than the systems down here. They have higher landfill fees. The labor rates are higher up there. So on a dollar basis, you wouldn't have the same proportions.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now I apologize for interrupting. If you could continue with your presentation.
The only last follow-up that I wanted to point out was the outreach that has happened to date as far as coming to the recommendations that the Bureau has come to. We outreach to what we had listed as stakeholders in the city of Los Angeles. Stakeholders consisted of waste haulers, business associations, labor organizations, as well as environmental groups, and anybody else who showed interest in the franchise system. We held a series of 8 stakeholder meetings. At those meetings, they were held both here in downtown LA, in South LA, and in the Valley. Meetings were held in both the evening and morning times. We wanted to make sure there was ample opportunity for everybody that would potentially be affected by the recommendations to come out, had the opportunity to participate in discussions and give input in the process. Other than that, I think that concludes my presentation.
Okay, and we recognize that in the course of the approval process here, there'll be other opportunities for the public to to get involved, including today's hearing. Any questions of the panel from the committee members?
Just a very basic question. Your proposal that came out of Public Works Commission, you selected 11 waste sheds. Why 11?
There are 6 waste sheds in the city. Essentially, it would divide 5 of our existing waste sheds in 2 and leave the 6th remaining waste shed, which is the San Pedro Harbor area, as one consistent zone.
So functionally, it makes sense for functional purposes, but there's no magic to that number. I mean, how important is it to have 11?
It fits well within our existing
So
system, but it's
okay.
not. It's not a required structure.
Okay. And
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Councilmember.
Yeah.
When we looked at the various areas of the city of Los Angeles, what we did is we did conduct a survey of our waste haulers to determine how many customers they were servicing currently. And what we found is that it obviously from our very large to small waste haulers, there's a big variation. The largest waste haulers collect anywhere from 10, 20, 30,000 commercial accounts. Smaller ones, obviously much less. So when we started looking at those 11 different waste sheds, they began to mirror and match some of the existing sizes of the waste haulers. So that was the thought process behind dividing it up, is not so large that there wasn't anybody out there that could service the city, but also not so large that the smaller ones couldn't operate in the city.
And within each one of those waste sheds, you recommended an exclusive for each one of those. What if we do 2 or 3 within each one of those waste sheds? How would that be problematic? Would that work? Would that not work?
I think essentially how that would end up work is it would end up being not 11 zones. It would end up being, if you break one down into 3, it would end up being 14 zones, which would have one exclusive franchise contract agreement with a provider in each of those 14.
But if you give, let's say 2, the right to operate within each one of those 11, is that a problem? Is it helping us or not helping us achieve our goals?
Well, there's, I suppose that with regards to the model itself, if it's 2 or more per waste shed, then it's a non-exclusive. So exclusive literally means 1 per service area.
Okay.
And so, on your earlier question to add to Commissioner Alarcon's, the only magic on the waste shed is that those are subdivisions that we have utilized for planning purposes, whether it's solid waste facilities, MRFs, material recovery facilities, or other things of that nature. So it has served us well from that point of view, the existing boundaries of the waste sheds. We utilize them on the sanitation side of our operation, and so we're mirroring it here for planning purposes. But it's only that piece that there's any magic to it. Beyond that, there isn't any more.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up on Mr. Weisler's question for a moment? Mr. Saldivar, what you said about exclusive versus non-exclusive sparked my recollection that we had a conversation when we sent out the 5-year notice about the meaning of the term exclusive for purposes of the 5-year notice. And just for clarity, and because I think there's a great deal of confusion around this issue as we've talked about it, for purposes of clarity, a 5-year notice is required in any system that excludes anyone from the system. Is that correct? So in that context, exclusive does not mean a monopoly. It does not even mean a monopoly per waste shed. It could be 20 haulers per waste shed as long as the 21st is excluded, and that would require the 5-year notice under state law. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So now what we're talking about is not related to that definition for the 5-year notice. What you're talking about when you refer to exclusivity in this report now is literally 1 hauler per geographical area, or however we're going to define this.
Right.
1 hauler per agreement.
Service area, oh, yes.
Service area, whether it's geographical or it might turn out to be something other than geographical for all I know. I don't know. But it does mean one only. Now, in the report, there are 4 benefits that are identified for that kind of exclusivity. And they are maximizing routing efficiencies, which Commissioner Alarcon discussed earlier, I think, the ability to require clean fuel vehicles, maximizing waste diversion, and promoting safe working conditions. And I just wanted to be sure that I'm clear on the law in this area. It is true, is it not, that promoting safe working conditions and requiring clean fuel vehicles can be done even in a non-monopolistic system as long as there is a limitation that the city imposes on the number of haulers.
Yes.
That's correct.
So under Mr. Weezar's question, it could be 2 or it could be 3 haulers per waste shed. As long as there's a limitation, the city would still retain the ability to promote safe working conditions and require, well, in fact, we wouldn't even have to. It would be mandated by state law that we would require clean fuel vehicles as long as there's a limitation on the number of haulers per waste shed. True?
That is true.
Okay. So the real advantage of this kind of exclusivity over a multi-hauler exclusive arrangement, if you want to call it that, or a multi-hauler limited arrangement, is in the ability to create a business plan that will maximize waste diversion, and also in eliminating the number of trucks on the or reducing the number of trucks on the street by having more efficient routing.
Exactly.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify the issues a little bit for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the report that is before us is a report that was presented by the Department of Public Works. And the actions of this committee, we could instruct. Let me put it this way: it's not my intent as the chair of the committee to approve each and every element of this report, but merely to make a decision as to whether or not the department should proceed in exploring the feasibility of an exclusive franchise agreement. So, for example, on the number of districts recommended, it wasn't my intent for this committee to make a declaration as to what the perfect number is, because we recognize that we may find that we want to change it later. And also, it will be reviewed by the Public Works Committee, by the Energy Committee, and by the City Council, and we would have other opportunities to modify the report. The purpose of this is to make a general statement about whether the department should move forward on franchising exclusively, and also to give some direction on ancillary issues that might have emerged in the process. But essentially what we're talking about is dramatically changing our system, and the primary reason for that is to benefit our environment. And there's been a lot of discussion about job loss and high costs, but let's recognize, as Enrique pointed out, at every iteration of change for the purpose of improving our environment, we've had some negative experiences with regard to economic costs and with regard to job transitioning. So it's never easy to improve our environment, but all of those various stages have demonstrated that we had prepared the city well to meet what eventually came from the state in terms of statutory requirements to divert our waste. In other words, you used the example of the Lopez Canyon landfill, and there were a lot of arguments that we didn't need to do that back in the day, but in hindsight, given the movement of the state legislature to require diversion, it was extremely helpful to put Los Angeles ahead of the curve, if you will, to meet those standards. So the same considerations are before us today. What are the standards that may be imposed on us by the state legislature of the future? I hope to find out real soon, but right now that's a real question. What is the public going to demand of us in terms of the initiative process that could be placed before us at any given election year? And does the city want to maintain its position as being one of the leaders in the country on waste diversion? And so I think that's really, I want to put this discussion in the context of our real goal here. It is not our goal to eliminate business, to eliminate jobs. On the other hand, we have to balance that desire to not do those things against the reality of improving our environment, which has some consequences on some people and some businesses. So having said that, I think, is there anything else that the department would like to present?
Not at this time, but we'll
Stick around.
stick around.
Okay. At this time, we'd like to ask for an overview of worker safety and safety oversight issues. We have Shirley Alvarado de Aguila from the Southern California COSH organization. Is she present? Okay, and joining her will be Carla Campos, a former sorter at American Reclamation, and Alex Salgado, a former employee of, I assume it's American Reclamation? I'm not sure. Shirley?
Yes.
Please.
Should I begin?
Yes.
Wait, okay. My name is Shirley Alvarado del Aguila, coordinator of the Southern California Coalition for Occupational Safety and Health, SoCalCOSH. We're a 25-year-old coalition of health and safety activists, workers, legal professionals, students, and academic researchers dedicated to eliminating hazardous working conditions and promoting healthier work environments. The commercial and multifamily systems for waste and recycling have failed workers by putting their health and safety at serious risk. We've met with many sorters and drivers over the last couple of years and have heard their stories. They speak of back injuries, respiratory problems, smashed fingers, cuts on their hands and faces, and skin rashes and irritations, to name a few. This industry is rife with abuse and neglect. Workers receive little to no safety training or protective equipment to do jobs that are highly dangerous. For those reasons, one of these companies, American Reclamation, is the subject of an exhaustive CalOSHA investigation as we speak. It's irresponsible to say that it's not the city's responsibility to protect workers. It's everyone's responsibility to protect workers at the employer level, city, and state. CalOSHA cannot regulate a whole industry. Workers need protection at every level. CalOSHA only has 196 inspectors to protect a workforce of 18 million. That's one inspector for 93,000 workers. It will take CalOSHA about 158 years to inspect every single workplace in California. CalOSHA can't protect workers unless we call their attention to the hazardous working conditions. This industry needs an exclusive franchise system in order to establish good working conditions across the board and level the playing field. Haulers are making the argument that this new system will eliminate jobs. Our argument is that we should be equally concerned about the quality of jobs as much as the quantity of jobs in the industry. Regulations don't kill jobs. Regulations prevent hazardous working conditions from killing workers. The commercial multifamily system, as it currently functions, continues to put workers at risk. This needs to be corrected now. The findings by HF and H explicitly state that an exclusive franchise system will provide the greatest protection from rogue operators. When rogue translates into injury and death, this is something that we all need to care about. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla?
Good afternoon. I am Carla Campos. I'm here as a former sorter at American Reclamation. I'm also here as a mother of 2 children and a lifetime resident in the Los Angeles area. When I took my job, I never imagined I would one day have to speak out about some of the things I have seen. I never imagined I would wind up jobless for doing so. I am one of the employees who put my name on a complaint to call OSHA, regarding the unsafe, indecent conditions at American Reclamation, just a few miles north from here. Some of you know my story because I have spoken with you, but mine is only one of many stories. Stories of sorters and drivers in this city who work for companies just like American Reclamation. 2 months ago, while working on the sorting line, I found dirty needles. I attempted to report the incident to our supervisor. Instead of him being concerned about our safety, instead of him ensuring that nobody else had been exposed to the needles, he wrongly accused me of putting the syringes there myself. The next day, I fell while trying to step over piles of trash to get to the restroom, and I was injured. An hour later, I was fired. I am not the first to be injured. When one of my coworkers was pricked by a used needle, the supervisor gave her hydrogen peroxide and told her to return to work. Other coworkers have injured their backs and were expected to get back on the job without any medical attention. Some of these injuries could have been avoided if American Reclamation would provide its employees safety training and proper equipment. But they don't. A cheap pair of gloves and a thin painter's face mask is not enough for my coworkers and my safety. It wasn't enough for Armando and Eladio Ramirez, 2 young men aged 16 and 22 who died in the facility where they worked late last year. Workers at that facility had complained about some of the same conditions as those my co-workers and I suffer, and the company did nothing. The problem is that this company and others don't care because they know they can get away with it, because no one knows. This needs to be changed for sorters, for drivers, and for workers in all kinds of facilities. And that is why I am willing to come here before you today and talk to you. We need your help. Our job is vital to the city of Los Angeles. We sort through the trash and separate the recyclable materials to keep it from going to the landfills. We are hard-working human beings, but many of the companies treat us worse than the trash we sort. To provide for our families, we are willing to do work that many other people will not do because it's dirty and it's hard. But we should be protected. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Alex Salgado.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Salgado. I've been a solid waste hauler for over 22 years. I've been here before today to speak on this issue, and I'm here again because it is so important for me and for my coworkers. We spend almost 12 hours a day working in trucks to provide the service that this city can go without. But in the current system for commercial and multifamily collection, a lot of the trucks we have to work in are dirty and they're dangerous. They're dangerous for us because many of us experience regular trouble breathing as a result of inhaling diesel fumes on the job. Some of us even suffer long-term health problems. They're dangerous for the public we share the roads with too. I've been in trucks and seen smoke blowing from pipes right into windows of cars driven by families alongside us. I've also seen trucks in need of repair that were sent out on the road because a company liked to cut corners. I've seen trucks with bald tires, bad brakes, broken or loose machinery sent out to over and over again until finally there's an accident and someone gets hurt. Fortunately, I work for a better company now, but there are still companies that just don't care. They don't care whether or not they hurt the people who work for them, and they don't care about the public either. They don't have to care because there aren't any rules and there isn't anyone they have to answer to. They make their haulers drive dirty, polluting trucks. They don't give them proper job training or equipment, and they put people's lives in danger. My fellow drivers and I are hard workers. We are doing all we can to care for our families, and we're part of this city. So our safety and well-being at work should be a concern for everyone. Many of us support changes to the system because we see and know the problems in this industry firsthand. And we don't think the public should be put in danger by companies who are irresponsible when it comes to all our health, our neighborhoods, and our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Okay, I think generally speaking, as the former chair of the Senate Labor and Industrial Relations Committee, I can say with full knowledge that the Occupational Health and Safety Department of the State of California does not have the resources to investigate all the injuries that occur on the job, and certainly all the conditions that might place workers in a position of injury. So one of the concerns that we hope to address is to the extent possible that the City of Los Angeles, by virtue of certification process and contracting, can drive better service and workplace safety through those processes, and not have to rely on the state to investigate all of these claims, but in fact require the contractor to upgrade their safety and their safety programs and injury prevention programs because they want to keep their contract with the city. And so that is one of the reasons I think that the exclusive franchise is also attractive to us. We do appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next panel before us is the panel on environmental impacts of commercial waste collection practices, and we have representing NRDC, Adrian Martinez, Hillary Gordon from the Sierra Club, Sean Rosal from Angelinos for a Clean Environment, and Lauren Akheim, I'm not sure, from Pacoima Beautiful. So Adrian, did I say Adriana? If I did, I apologize, but Adrian Martinez?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Alacron and members of the committee. My name is Adrian Martinez, and I'm here on behalf of the Natural Resources Defense Council and our more than 16,000 members in Los Angeles County. I'm here to support the committee approving the staff report, encourage the city to move forward as expeditiously as possible with an exclusive franchise system for Los Angeles. Disposal of waste is perhaps one of the most pressing environmental issues in the Los Angeles area. The city has already promised to become a zero-waste city by 2030. This entails interim goals of achieving 75% diversion from landfills by 2013 and 90% by 2025. These are ambitious goals, and without the correct structures in place, the city will not meet these promises. The most pressing change that needs to happen is transforming how we collect waste in the multifamily and commercial sectors, which account for approximately 70% of the waste the city sends to landfills. According to the city's own analysis, only 19% of the waste from commercial sector goes to diversion facilities, and this number may even be lower because a significant portion of that material is construction and demolition. Simply stated, this is unacceptable. Forming waste collection provides global, regional, and local benefits. On a global scale, California adopted AB 32, which requires the state to establish mandatory recycling for multifamily and commercial sectors. As a result, laws have been passed requiring recycling, including AB 341. These standards are on the books now. On a regional scale, trash trucks currently crisscross our city, wasting precious fuel, emitting toxic diesel pollution, and contributing to already unacceptable congestion in the nation's most congested city. On a local level, my colleagues in the Don't Waste LA Coalition, like Pacoima Beautiful and Communities for a Better Environment, have identified the regional and community impacts from the waste industry, ranging from noise to odors to long lines of trucks queuing in neighborhoods. With whatever system the city undertakes, standards and a moral imperative exist that require the City of Los Angeles to do better to address these global, regional, and local impacts. As the HF&H report and the Bureau of Sanitation have determined, an exclusive franchise provides the best benefits to mitigate these impacts from the waste system. After carefully reviewing this and other reports, NRDC agrees with this assessment. Notably, an exclusive franchise system will allow for the greatest accountability. The nature of this industry requires strong oversight. This oversight must ensure companies meet aggressive diversion standards. This accountability also means requiring those companies to innovate in how they create the waste infrastructure for the future. And most importantly, it must also ensure companies not engage in practices that unduly impact communities. To meet our zero waste goals, we need investment. We currently don't have the infrastructure to achieve these lofty goals. As we seek to achieve a higher and higher percentage diversion, it becomes tougher and tougher to make sure we are diverting our waste. We aren't just talking about bottles and cans, but rather materials that are more difficult to address and require comprehensive planning and investment. An exclusive franchise allows that investment to take place. The focus in a non-exclusive system is making sure that your contracts aren't poached. The focus in an exclusive is making sure that you're meeting the city conditions and innovating in a way that when the term expires for the franchise, you're in a good position to get it renewed. Finally, beyond the significant environmental benefits, you're hearing a lot about job impacts. The Blue-Green Alliance, in conjunction with a lot of groups, released a report. And if we can meet our zero waste goals, I think that report identifies that there's significant job creation with the recycling and diversion industries. For example, landfilling and incineration only create 0.1 jobs per 1,000 tons of waste. In sharp contrast, you can create as many as 4 or 10 for reuse manufacturing. To end, I reiterate NRDC's support for the conclusion of the Bureau of Sanitation that the best way to meet zero waste goals and minimize impacts from the waste industry is through an exclusive franchise. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Hillary Gordon?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Hillary Gordon, and I am the chair of the Zero Waste Committee of the Angeles chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm here representing the 40,000 plus members of our chapter, many of whom live and or work in the city of Los Angeles. I am myself a lifelong resident of the city, and I'm also a stakeholder and very active participant in the SWRP process that has been creating the blueprint for getting the city of Los Angeles to zero waste. The Sierra Club has a very strong commitment to achieving zero waste through increased diversion, composting, and recycling, and we believe wholeheartedly that an exclusive franchise system, as recommended in the BOS staff report, offers the City of Los Angeles the absolute best opportunity to reach its zero waste goal. An exclusive franchise system will ensure that we achieve the greatest diversion possible, lessening our reliance on polluting landfills, while protecting our communities from the negative impacts of waste hauling trucks and poorly run MRFs. One of the most injurious impacts of the current open permit system we have today is the inefficient routing of waste trucks. My own neighborhood is a great example. We have trash trucks from multiple companies coming down our narrow street literally every day of the week, often multiple times a day, making the street impassable, subjecting the residents to the emission and noise from trucks, and taking a terrible toll in terms of wear and tear on the street. This situation can be contrasted with the serenity of my neighbors, literally just one block down, who, as owners of single-family homes, get city service just one day a week. It's a tale of two radically different waste hauling worlds, separated by just a couple of hundred yards, but worlds apart in terms of community and environmental impact. An exclusive franchise would guarantee that residents on my block of apartments and condos would no longer have to unfairly bear a burden which our neighbors are so fortunately free from. A non-exclusive franchise system would offer us absolutely no relief from this awful situation. The City of Los Angeles Bureau of Sanitation has a truly commendable recycling program, one absolutely worthy of emulation. It should not be limited only to those fortunate enough to live in single-family homes or small multifamily buildings. Efficient routing and collection and high rates of recycling and diversion must be guaranteed to all Angelenos, regardless of income or neighborhood. An exclusive franchise system is the surest way to achieve this. We also need to significantly raise the bar on recycling. While the city has achieved an admirable diversion rate of 65 to 70%, most of that diversion is happening in the single-family sector. It is also happening by way of harvesting the lowest hanging fruit, the obvious recyclables. To truly achieve zero waste, we will need to greatly increase not only the number of residents and businesses that receive recycling services, we will have to ensure that the recycling services that are offered will accept the greatest amount and variety of materials possible, including, for example, food waste and harder to recycle materials. The competitive bidding process for an exclusive franchise offers the city the opportunity to demand that franchisees collect the same wide array of source-separated recyclable materials as the sanitation department does. An exclusive franchise system would be the best way to guarantee that a system as efficient and comprehensive and with as high a diversion rate as that of the Bureau of Sanitation be made available to all the residents of the city. You have a proposal before you today that is confirmed by the HF&H and TELUS reports will absolutely protect our environment, increase recycling and diversion, clean up our streets and our communities, and protect the health, safety, and rights of the workers who are the backbone of this critical industry in our city. Please support the Bureau of Sanitation recommendation calling for an exclusive franchise system for the hauling and processing of municipal solid waste and recyclables in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Rosal, representing Angelinos for a Clean Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sean Russell, and I'm representing Angelinos for a Clean Environment. Our coalition represents the interest of thousands of businesses, nonprofits, tenants, apartment owners, schools, hospitals, movie studios, small and medium haulers, business advocacy, and community groups throughout Los Angeles. This diverse group has come together because a change to multifamily and commercial waste collection in Los Angeles will impact us all Angelinos. We fully support all of the policy objectives that the city is seeking to achieve through the establishment of a franchise system, especially the environmental goals, including clean trucks and zero waste. Our only concern is the method by which a franchise system works. Rather than adopting an exclusive franchise, which will kill jobs in small businesses, we are advocating for a non-exclusive franchise system. According to the city's HF&H assessment, a non-exclusive franchise agreement would allow the city to institute the clean fleet, zero waste, workplace safety, and living wage policies that it is seeking to accomplish through this policy. There are no unique policy or fiscal benefits to the city to adopting an exclusive franchise system. At the same time, a non-exclusive franchise arrangement will protect high-paying jobs, allow small, family-owned businesses to compete, and preserve the competition that keep rates affordable for consumers. As an industry, waste haulers and recyclers are among the most proactive in working to protect our environment and expand recycling programs. What we are learning from our coalition members are that they are already working with haulers to meet their own aggressive recycling standards. Many of the businesses, nonprofits, schools, and other members of our coalition are already doing more recycling than would be mandated under this proposal. This collaborative effort to increase recycling between haulers and customers will be lost if the city moves to an exclusive franchise arrangement. For example, Park La Brea Apartments has worked diligently with its haulers over many years to develop an innovative recycling program that exceeds city standards and works in a way that suits the needs of those historic buildings at Park La Brea, and that would be lost under an exclusive franchise. Moreover, haulers have gone above and beyond the existing stringent state regulations to convert to the lowest emission and most efficient vehicles available, investing heavily in natural gas and clean diesel technology. And fully, they are in support of the clean fleet standards that the city is looking to implement through a franchise arrangement. As recently as last week, the Bureau of Sanitation commented that an exclusive franchise will result in a greater number of trucks on the road, with further impacts to our infrastructure and greater air quality impacts. Unfortunately, the Bureau was unable to indicate the number or the environmental impacts of these added trucks because no environmental impact report or traffic study has yet been conducted in the city of Los Angeles. The exclusive franchise model that the city has relied on, San Jose, did find in their own studies that there would be actually an increase in the number of trucks on the roads. Moreover, an exclusive franchise is likely to favor large haulers. These haulers' operations are clustered in the northeast San Fernando Valley. As more trucks originate, dump, and consolidate waste in the Northeast Valley, including in Council District 7, there will be a greater environmental and air quality impact to this economically depressed region. The city cannot afford to guess about what the environmental impacts of this dramatic policy change will be to our city. We need to know for certain what this policy change will mean to air quality, recycling standards, and the health of our environment. We want to work with the Natural Resource Defense Council, Sierra Club, Pacoima Beautiful, the city, and other stakeholders to engage in the necessary environmental study to understand the impacts of this proposal. We look forward to working with the city and stakeholders on a full environmental impact report in advance of any action on this proposal. Doing this study is the only sure way that we can ensure we pursue the best policy choice for our natural resources in Angelenos. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Akheim, Pacoima Beautiful.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Akiem. I'm here as part of Pacoima Beautiful. We are located in Council District 6 and 7. Council District 7. Pacoima Beautiful is dedicated to bringing residents of the Northeast Valley together to address the needs and challenges they face through long-term, sustainable, economic, and environmental solutions. And we're here today in support of an exclusive franchise system. To achieve environmental justice in regards to our waste and recycling, we must address the fact that polluting facilities are disproportionately sited in low-income, working-class communities of color like the Northeast San Fernando Valley. This creates a severe impact on the health of our entire communities. Many of our residents are exposed multiple times from the dirty diesel trucks that pour into our community and through the neighborhoods, the facilities that are located near people's homes, and on the job, as they are frequently the employees as sorters and haulers of these facilities. Residents are forced to live day in and day out with these cancer-causing pollutants, the acrid smell, and disruptive noise of these facilities and trucks. The City of Los Angeles has made commitments to high environmental standards. My organization and others in the Don't Waste LA Coalition believe there's even more we can do to create the partnerships between the people of this city, the haulers who take away our trash, the sorters working in these facilities to address these environmental concerns. We know we must move forward the conversion to a recycling economy, because we know it will mean the implementation of standards for good and green jobs, standards that can hold companies accountable. And it will mean that we are investing in communities such as the Northeast Valley rather than dumping on them. An exclusive franchise system is the only way to ensure the efficiencies and accountability necessary to actually achieve zero waste, clean air and facilities, and good green jobs for our residents. The HF&H report verifies this in point 9 and in its chart showing that recycling is simply not occurring within the current system. We do not have faith in self-policing policies of the waste and recycling industry. All of them, in our experience, will cut corners where they can, regardless of the toll on the community, on people, and on the environment. This is only made worse in a system where no one, including the city, knows who, where, when, or how haulers are picking trash and recyclables. In a system like that, whether you call it non-exclusive or permit, there is no accountability and it's a race to the bottom. The results are far more trucks than necessary, far more emissions, far more wear and tear on our streets, and no legitimate way to hold these companies accountable for the city's environmental and workplace standards, which are quite high, or to ensure that our zero waste goals are met. The impacts of this industry are disproportionately concentrated in our community. The opposition, especially lobbyists such as Sorrell and Associates, have said that our proposed system would create monopolies for waste management and Republic, and that they would control the entire market and send all of their waste to Pacoima and Sun Valley. A high road competition via an exclusive franchise system is actually the solution to this problem. Under the current system, which does not have exclusive franchise, almost 30%, about 430,000 tons of waste are put in 2 facilities in the valley, in the Sunshine Canyon landfill and the Community Recycling Resource and Recovery Facility. That is just not equitable. An exclusive system is the only way to address this, as a non-exclusive or voluntary system would do absolutely nothing to rectify that inequity. We want an efficient and accountable system where the city can ensure haulers take waste to targeted facilities near the franchisee service zone, not send waste from across the city in dirty trucks to the valley like exists now in the current system. The only way to incentivize investment in more facilities and ensure they're equitably sited, is through exclusive arrangements where haulers have the security and companies have the security to invest. By having accountability, we would also ensure that we meet our zero waste goals, reducing the need for landfills. The HF&H report says exclusive systems protects against rogue operators. We live with those rogue operators every day. whether in our communities, our neighborhoods with high density multifamily apartments, or our businesses. For this city to move forward with any system that ignores the environmental footprint of this industry would be unconscionable. We strongly support the Bureau of Sanitation's recommendation for an exclusive franchise, reject the special interest arguments opposing it, and urge you to approve this report and take the next step needed to achieve good jobs, clean air, and recycling for all. This policy is good for our community, for the environment, for our economy, for the Northeast San Fernando Valley, and the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of these panelists? Mr. Krikorian?
On the topic, but more for the consultants. So I don't know how you want to do that. We can
I'm
come back
sorry.
to it later. We can come back to it later if you like.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me just, if I can.
Please.
And I'll leave this to whoever wants to answer it, actually. I want to get a little bit of trash 101 here, if you will, because we have a fixed amount of trash to be picked up in a fixed geographical area. And whether it is a single hauler for the entire city or with the Wild West or something in between where we have waste sheds with one or more than one franchisee in a waste shed, you still have the exact same number of trucks required to be filled up with trash every day and taken to a facility. Isn't that right?
I would actually suggest that in the future it might not be right. Right now it might be the case.
As we get greater diversion rates, yes,
right.
That's a separate issue. I just want to talk about truck trips right now.
As we incentivize diversion through the contracts that the city can enact with exclusive haulers in any given waste shed or service area, then ultimately you are going to hopefully be beefing up the amount of recyclables collected and drastically reducing the amount of waste that's being collected. I understand your point. I understand your point about the number of trucks. I do think, though, that with an exclusive system where you have the city divided up into service areas, you won't have one truck coming to pick up from one building on one day and then having a second truck coming to pick up from one building the next day. So you might have the same number of trucks in the city, but the impact per waste shed would be drastically less because you would have one company servicing a neighborhood and they would be able to efficiently schedule their trucks so that they're going down any given street, preferably only that one time a week.
Okay.
I think the other issue is when you look at different cities that either have non-exclusive or exclusive, there are some cities that actually do better in the number of trucks per waste process. So if you compare Long Beach to Santa Clarita processes more waste per, smaller population, but they use fewer trucks per tonnage of waste. So I think
why is that? Higher diversion rate or?
They're under an exclusive franchise system and they just have fewer trucks. A lot of
bigger trucks?
But yeah, if they're not bigger trucks, how is that possible?
Well, I think
I have one theory, and that is that many of the trucks are not full. So you end up with more trucks.
Part of the problem with saying that you're going to have more precise routing under an exclusive franchise is it doesn't take into account the hours and operations of businesses. You have some businesses that demand a pickup in the afternoon, some businesses that demand a pickup in the morning. It just has to do with their waste flow and when the trash is actually full. So it has yet to be seen how much of a reduction there actually will be. In the city of San Jose, the reason they had more trucks was source site separation. So you have a truck going to pick up the trash, you have a truck going to pick up the green waste, you have a truck going to pick up the recyclables. So that was part of the reason for the significant increase in the number of trucks.
But one of the interesting things in the city of San Jose in their environmental impact report, which our colleague from ACE pointed out, it actually determined the crossing paths of multiple haulers that can occur under the existing conditions would not occur under the proposed project, and therefore the number of truck trips and truck noise in most commercial areas of the city should decrease. So, as we're moving forward, I think it's important to look at the entire documentation. We can't just cherry pick one statement out of the environmental review for San Jose.
Couldn't agree with you more, and I think that, and I'm going to come to that in a moment. But this issue of crisscrossing routes might be true on a given block, but the crisscrossing routes as they all come together around Sun Valley and the neighborhoods that my constituents live in. We're going to have the same crisscrossing routes no matter whether we have one hauler or 55 haulers. They're still going to go to the same transfer stations unless we're going to increase the number of transfer stations and move them around the city. And I can tell you from even remodeling of transfer stations in my district how difficult that is. So this notion that all of a sudden we're going to get a bunch of transfer stations that will be equitably distributed around the city, I find very, very difficult to imagine that that's going to happen.
And Councilmember Krikorian, one thing we would like to do...
I'm sorry. I'll come back to you.
Because we're sharing the microphone. If I could address that, for one, the trucks in Santa Cruz, it does look like they're fuller, and they have actually dramatically less trucks than in a non-exclusive city like Long Beach. It's partially because of their full, and they're also just much more efficient in their pickup routes. Similarly, with as far as the amount of trucks coming into the valley, if you're reducing the amount of trucks and you're also requiring some kind of proximity for the waste sheds for those haulers to take waste to facilities nearby, there are actually facilities throughout the city, not just in Sun Valley. It's just that right now, almost 30% of trash is brought there. So for one thing, it's to have it distributed more equitably among the existing facilities, but also if you're then reducing the number of trucks, then you're reducing the number of trucks coming into the valley. And additionally, right now, even though ARB and AQMD have very high standards for truck quality, a lot of those trucks are just absolutely not up to those standards. And so under this system, we can have a lot more ability to ensure that those trucks are clean trucks, so that the trucks coming into the valley are up to standards and are not having the same kind of environmental impact on our
Right, but we've dealt with that issue already, because under the CARB rules, if you have any exclusive system, whether it's a monopoly or not, they're still mandated to have the green truck requirements. So whether there's 5 in a waste shed or 1, it's still it's irrelevant.
We are actually not currently able to have Rule 1193 apply to us because we do not have an exclusive franchise system, which specifically relates to the cleanliness of solid waste collection vehicles. And also, right now, even though
that's not the case. If we have any franchise agreement, the CARB rules apply. So whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive, the CARB rules apply. So the green trucks issue is not relevant to the issue of how many per waste shed or whatever.
It is if an exclusive system means that you know who it is picking up the trash, when, and where.
Okay.
And just to clarify, we are in support of a franchise, which would, implement Rule 1193 and the clean truck standards. There's no issue there. We fully are in agreement with all of the environmental standards that the city wants to accomplish. Our big issue, and I think what we would like to see the city do, is conduct the environmental impact report and the study that needs to go into this proposal before any action is taken.
Did San Jose do that? Did San Jose do an EIR?
Yeah, they did a. They did.
Can we cut to the chase? Is the department
negative declaration
planning on doing an EIR? Can we have somebody from the department just
if
address
so,
that
then
issue?
a lot of these questions are going to be required in the environmental impact process, right? So.
Right. We would just like to see that done before.
Could I get an answer from the department?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Just as to whether or not the department plans on doing an EIR related to this.
The department does plan on doing the proper environmental review for this project. The city of San Jose did a negative declaration. They didn't do an EIR for it.
Okay.
When did they do it? Can I follow up on that? When did they do they start the environmental review process after the decision makers decided when they're going to start that process? Or?
Well, yes. It actually for us, when you start the environmental review process is upon crafting of the policy, so that we know what we're studying. So generally, there's an adoption by the council of a policy with a direction to the department. Then we go and do our environmental review and other ancillary things. We come back with that for the final approval with that completed, and the final decision is made after you're informed of all the potential environmental impacts of the action and possibly alternatives.
You need some policy direction, right, as to know what you're going to study.
Yes, the policy direction is needed first, but it needs to be a policy direction rather than the final decision.
Well, and sort of related to that, if it were an EIR and a major development, the draft EIR would analyze various proposals as alternatives.
Yes.
So in this case, would there be analysis of alternative policy proposals as well that would be related to the same objectives and the overall framework, but maybe 12 waste sheds instead of 6, or, franchises?
Well, generally you do a reasonable number of alternatives, so not everything under the sun. You always have to do a no project alternative, which means if we didn't do anything and compare that to the proposed projects, and then you whittle it down to a few alternatives that you compare against also the proposed project.
Okay. And the council could provide you with some direction as to, compare A, B, and C?
Of course.
Okay.
Could you take us through the steps very quickly? Assuming we approve the direction for the department to move forward with an exclusive franchise agreement, what would then be the next step?
Well, if the proposed policy is adopted by the city council, so that this is the if, and the direction is given to the department to go and do the environmental review, what we would do is a scoping process, get everybody's input on what the proposed project entails. We go to the responsible agencies, the people that would be important to us, like the air quality folks, and say, what do you want to see? And then we would conduct a number of studies, look at the environmental impacts. There would be prepare a draft document.
And that would come back to us when?
Well, it would come back after.
When? Give me a time frame.
Oh,
here.
time frame. I would say it would be what, a 6 to 9 month time frame for something of that nature.
Okay, I think you're skipping this.
What am I skipping?
I'm not sure, but I thought the department intended to come back with a more detailed report in the fall.
So we do have every intention of coming back with a full implementation plan and some greater parameters as to what an exclusive system would look like. The time frame for that is anticipated anywhere between July and August. There is a 2-week council recess. Once full council takes an action and gives the Bureau a direction on the parameters of the proposal or the program that they would like us to review and do the full environmental assessment, it will be 6 to 9 months from that period of time. So assuming council takes an action in August, it will then be a subsequent 6 to 9 months period.
Okay, so just so that everybody's clear, this report is sort of a general report, and if we approve this direction, then you would come back in July or August with a more detailed implementation plan.
Exactly, and ideally the CAO's report will have been completed at that juncture, so we will have several reports before the consideration of the council.
Okay. Well, thank you. That helps a lot. Let's move on to the next panel. And Mr. Koretz, the other Paul has joined us. This is panel number 4, the impact of proposed exclusive franchise commercial waste collection and recycling on small haulers. We have the Bureau, we have Ron Saldana from Los Angeles CDA, Matthew Katanjian from AAA Disposal, Steve Tucker from Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling, Greg Good from Don't Waste LA. Please all step forward, and we'll begin with the Bureau's presentation. Unless the Bureau already presented. Did you have another presentation, or would it? No. Great. Mr. Saldana? Is it Saldana or Saldana?
Either way you prefer, Mr. Chairman.
Whatever, it's your name.
No, he doesn't have that much power. It's your name, man. Come on.
Okay, Mr. Saldana, please.
That's fine. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. My name is Ron Saldana. I am the Executive Director of the Los Angeles County Disposal Association. LACDA represents solid waste haulers throughout Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. We also represent facility owners and operators, and we also represent supplier firms, those firms that, and there's a lot of them, that supply goods and services to the solid waste industry in the city of Los Angeles. One of the things I just want to start with, that we are very, very supportive of a non-exclusive system, and I want to address that today and tie that in with the small haulers. LACDA represents probably the majority of our members are small haulers and medium-sized haulers, so that's where we're coming from. We had 2 letters that were submitted during the Public Works hearing, and I have those with me, and I'd like to leave those with you today. One of them addresses some legal concerns that the industry has, and the other one is by a geologist, and it goes into some of the environmental factors and some of the environmental concerns. Regarding that, I'd just like to add that, and Councilman Krikorian, you talked and you pointed out, I thought, some really good points concerning the difference between San Jose and the city of Los Angeles. And I don't know that you'd find anybody in the solid waste industry that would be necessarily willing to compare San Jose with the city of Los Angeles, only because the diversity is so great. It's not just when you compare those 8,000 commercial accounts with over 100,000 commercial accounts. It's when you look at the diversity of the city in terms of the types of businesses that it has, in terms of the size of the businesses. It would, you know better than I, it would be very, very hard to duplicate anywhere the conditions that exist in this great city of ours. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that I want to get into very, very quickly, if I might, regarding the small haulers. I don't think that, and we've looked at this exclusive versus non-exclusive situation in a lot of different angles and in a lot of different ways, and we don't see any way that you can go to an exclusive system and preserve the small hauler. Any way that you're not going to drive the small hauler to extinction. And one of the problems there is that right now, because we have such a great competition in the city of Los Angeles, because we have the businesses enjoy competitive rates, the businesses enjoy competitive service levels. When you take that away from the business and you go to, say, you make the decision to go to an exclusive situation, basically you're going down a road where you're not going to be able to come back again. The small hauler is going to be gone. You're going to be left with a few larger haulers, and I believe, speaking personally, you're going to be at their mercy to some degree, and I can cite you examples of other cities where that's happened, and you're going to be in a situation where I think you're going to be creating another gas and electric or another utility, and you're going to be involved in setting rates and those types of things. And is that really the direction that you want to go? And I think there's a lot of nuts and bolts in this subject that really need to be examined that haven't been examined yet. And I hope that that's done by the City Council before real decisions and lasting decisions are made. Mm-hmm. I think in addition to that, it's our position that a non-exclusive system will give you everything that you want in terms of standards, in the terms of regulations, in the terms of how you want to administer your waste collection program for commercial businesses in this city. If you look at a franchise agreement, you've got several components to that, but one of the components, of course, is this going to be an exclusive or a non-exclusive. But the main part of that agreement is going to be the standards, the rules and regulations that you as a city want to set forth and you want to enforce. And that's not that's not included in whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive. That's included in the body of the text, and that body of the text is going to essentially be the same whether you go exclusive or whether you go non-exclusive. We hear a lot of terms of, well, let's raise the bar. Well, the bar is being raised all the time. The bar in the waste industry is being raised every day. Now we're talking about how are we going to mandate food recycling throughout the communities? How are we going to mandate transition to alternative fuel trucks throughout the communities as rapidly as we can? And at the same time, we have to talk about, and what this panel is, and I thank you for that subject, we have to talk about the small hauler and what the ramifications are. If you go to an exclusive, if I'm a small hauler, and you're going to hear from one here in a minute, when I be quiet, when you go to a small hauler, they're dependent, their livelihood is dependent, a lot of them, on Los Angeles, on the city of Los Angeles, whether they are existing or not. So these are the things that we would encourage you to think about, raising the bar. Los Angeles, you have a fantastic staff. You have a fantastic sanitation department in this city. We really enjoy working with them. They're just great people. They're very, very knowledgeable. And they have raised Los Angeles to be one of the highest rated cities, if not the highest rated city in the country in terms of waste diversion and recycling. And again, we keep moving up that ladder. And we keep going, and we keep going. So, and we can go just as rapidly, I believe, under a non-exclusive system as we can under an exclusive system. And I sit here and I hear zero waste. And you know, we support zero waste 100%. And we do everything we can to get there. And then you talk about zero waste. Let's get there by 2025. And, you know, I'm sitting here saying, well, gee, why don't we have a non-exclusive system, a system that we can implement right away? We don't have to wait 5 years. We can implement it right now. You can have whatever fee structure you want included in that, whatever the council feels is appropriate. And on top of that, we can reach our zero waste goals. And why do we have to wait till 2025 to reach our zero waste goals? Why do we have to wait that long? We're already on that road. Why don't we just say, let's reach zero waste by 2020? Why don't we do that? I don't know why you do that, and I don't know why you can't reach those goals within the parameters of a non-exclusive system. Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time.
Hey, could I ask you how many members you have?
We have about, it goes up and down, but we have about 30 haulers. We have about 10 facility operators and owners, and we have about another between 50 and 70 associate suppliers, with a lot of those in the city of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So, and I say we have about 30 haulers, and I'd say probably 80 or 90% of them are, mm-hmm. the majority of them are small to medium-sized haulers. And when you look at the city of Los Angeles and say, okay, well, we've got 140 registered haulers in the city of Los Angeles, yeah. And then if you take out multifamily and you just look at the ones that service commercial, the commercial accounts, but and then you take out C and D, because, you know, where are we today and who are we talking about specifically? We're probably only talking about 30 or 35 companies. And there are certainly ways that even under a non-exclusive system that you can confine it to those companies and whoever among those companies that can meet your criteria. And then in addition to that, there are ways of, such as...
So that was 35 and 10, right?
35 and 10.
You went way off and
I'm sorry, but,
answered a question I didn't ask, but
okay, I'm sorry.
35 and 10, okay. I just want to mention that I do think it's interesting that you used the term essential service and you compared it to the utilities. I think clearly waste removal is an essential service, but the question that is being begged today is whether or not cleaning our environment is an essentiality that government has a responsibility to address. And frankly, the industry has for far too long been driven by money, not by the desire to clean the environment, and it only cleans the environment when directed to clean the environment, required to clean the environment. Having said that, I want to commend the waste haulers for doing a great job in many respects for improving our diversion rate, meeting the state standards. The question is, can we do better? And I think that's really what we're trying to get at. So with that, I'd like to move to the next speaker, I'm sorry, you're Ron. Let's see, we have Matt Katanjian from AAA Disposal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of council. My name is Matthew Kotanjian from AAA Rubbish Company. We have been in the waste and recycling industry for 5 generations since my great-grandfather started back in 1908. For 25 years, we've been a member of the local Teamsters Local 396, and we currently, 80% of our business is in the city of Los Angeles, and our company does meet the top 10 haulers in the city. However, our market share in the city is at 1.2% of the market. And it's been mentioned that our trucks are dirty, and our trucks are heavily regulated throughout the state. We meet California CARB compliance. We are AQMD compliant. We just phased in our first natural gas vehicle to collect solid waste in the city of Los Angeles. For the last 30 years, we've been using low sulfur diesel for our trucks. We've been using low carbon oil for our trucks. And every single year for the last 20, 30 years, we maintain our trucks, regular oil changes, tune-ups, we adjust the valves to make sure the trucks are running properly and efficiently. And we currently buy our goods and services in the city. We buy paint for our bins and for roll-off containers. We buy bins for our customers. We buy uniforms for our drivers within the city. We buy all of our welding supplies here within the city. And my grandparents were born in the city of Los Angeles. My father was born and raised in Los Angeles. My brother and I were born and raised in Los Angeles. And my brother currently lives in the city of Los Angeles. So our family has over a 100-year history within the city. If the city decides to make the solid waste collection part of an exclusive franchise, we'll be out of business. We just cannot pick up our bins and trucks and move somewhere else, because in the transition of doing that, trying to pay our bills, we'll be forced out of business. We are considered an east side waste collection company. All of our accounts are primarily east of the 110 freeway. And when those trucks are filled on a daily basis, that trash is transported to east side material recovery facilities. And once we're forced out of business and we're swallowed up by the corporate Wall Street trash companies, all that trash will be transported to the valley facilities where there's no regulation. I'll give you an example. They can guarantee your rate of X amount of dollars per ton at their disposal facilities one day, and by tomorrow they can quadruple that price, and there's no accountability with that respect. So I encourage the city. For us and our family, it's hard to imagine that if the city does go out to an exclusive system, we'd be put out of business, and our family's been here for over 100 years.
Okay, I'm curious what are the specifics that you are suggesting will drive you out of business?
Well, the first specific, Mr. Chairman, is making it an exclusive system. If the RFP is put out for a specific waste shed, how are we going to compete with the Wall Street waste companies?
What if they can't compete in a specific district?
In our history...
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
What if they are not allowed to compete in a specific district? Would you be competitive?
Absolutely. But again,
I intend to introduce a motion to set aside have the department consider setting aside some of the districts to be for small haulers. Would that be something that would be competitive for your company?
Mr. Chairman,
I hear a lot of good things about your company, and I'm thinking...
I'm going to answer your question, yes. However, the reason why we're still in business today is because the choice of accounts that we've selected over the last 65 years. It's by choice, and it's because of our service. We're just afraid that we're going to be left with the scraps. And we want to be able to reserve our right to choose...
Getting the scraps is a good thing in this industry, isn't it?
To answer your
question, Matthew, how many trucks do you have?
We currently run 10 trucks per day.
And what is your maximum capacity in terms of waste hauling? What do you feel, how many tons do you think you can handle?
We accept any challenge that's brought to us. We've been doing this for our whole lives, and we're up to any challenge.
Okay, would you be willing to work with the department to hone in on what might be good demonstration size for small haulers to be competitive in?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. By the way, with all the different companies in your association, are you like the best? Or are you like, are there other companies, do they all meet the same standards? And who I'm asking Matt, but so are there standards that the association keeps?
Mr. Chairman,
or is it just a membership thing?
All the haulers in the Los Angeles County Disposal Association meet and exceed all the challenges that are faced with for state standards, AQD standards, city standards. The perfect example is the hauler that services the Park Library Apartments. He meets and exceeds that one company with 3 trucks. They're all family members. They've been servicing the Park Library Apartments since the 50s. He meets and exceeds everybody's expectations, and we're up to the challenge as well. All the haulers in the association are doing whatever they can within due diligence to make sure that they are a satisfactory company.
Okay.
And I can speak for, and we're one of them.
Okay, well, I do want to mention, I do intend to introduce a motion to direct the department to, when establishing the districts, to consider carving out some of the districts for small haulers to compete in. Because I think one of the things we definitely want to do, since we have scale, since we have diversity in the city of Los Angeles that is unique, and because we have specific large industries that are unique, like the filming industry, we want to see, essentially, we want to have the opportunity to consider piloting projects, demonstration projects, to maximize everybody's opportunities to improve our recycling performance. So I wouldn't jump to conclusions that the size of the districts is going to be equal and going to take you out of the market. I wouldn't take that for granted at all. So thank you very much for presenting. We have Steve Tucker from Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Tucker. I'm Chief Operating Officer and Principal Partner with Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling. Now, I've been in the business for about 30 years here, and for the vast majority of that time in senior executive capacities with 3 of the large companies, BFI, USA Waste, and Waste Management. During my career, I've had the privilege of managing over 27 municipal exclusive franchises and over 450 collection vehicles, and also had the privilege of negotiating over $1 billion in exclusive franchises. After about 22 years working for the large companies, in 2005, my business partners, Mel Howard and Richard Macias, and I started Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling. Compared to the large national and regional companies in Los Angeles, our company is a small hauling operation. But you know what? We're really hungry to grow. Currently, we are the exclusive franchise service provider for the city of Compton. As I understand it, we're one of the few minority-owned waste collection companies in California that has an exclusive franchise. Recently, our company secured a portion of the exclusive franchise in the city of Inglewood for the roll-off services and the recycling collection service for the Los Angeles Unified School District. It's no secret that the city of LA commercial and multifamily market is of great interest to companies like mine and the hauling community. Aside from the sheer size, it's also quite lucrative and has huge impacts on the industries in the region. What happens in Los Angeles resonates throughout the waste and recycling industry. Our company has not pursued growth in the city of Los Angeles. We don't do business in the city of Los Angeles now. We focus on municipal franchises, exclusive franchises. And the reason why is because we're fully committed to the job, truck, and recycling standards that make it hard to compete in a non-exclusive system without standards, or in any system where standards aren't legitimately enforceable. Our company is a union company, has been from day one. We really believe in paying living wages. One of the benefits of an exclusive franchise system is that it creates the best environment for capital investment for a waste hauler. As a waste hauler, you know that you will have quantifiable revenue and a customer base to justify business loans. That allows us to invest, to engage in partnership with the city and our customers, and to spread the cost of operating in a responsible manner. The fact is that the waste industry is already heavily regulated. The challenge with a non-exclusive system is that there are no real means to enforce those regulations. As a hauler, you're faced with a business decision at the end of the day. Do you want to operate in a way that compromises your business model in order to compete? or would you prefer to compete in a system that puts everyone at the same starting line? We want to compete in the city of Los Angeles, and if the city of LA moves to an exclusive franchise system, you can bet we will. If the city is serious about zero waste, clean truck, jobs, and quality of life goals within the waste industry, in my opinion, a non-exclusive system is not your answer. Reaching those goals requires long-term planning, strategic partnership, and commitment from both sides. This is a heavily capital-intensive industry, and absent any significant commitment, it's difficult for a company like mine to make investments here. From what I understand, many in the city want to achieve zero waste and have an impact, a positive impact on the environment. In my opinion, an exclusive franchise system is the best way to get there. I would recommend to this body an exclusive franchise system with, as you said, a set aside of certain areas for small companies like ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Good from Don't Waste LA.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alarcon, honorable members of the committee. My name is Greg Good. I work for the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, a 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit advocacy organization, and I'm the director of the Don't Waste LA project. Lane, as you all know, does work in many industries, but what has become apparent from the outset of this project was that very few, if any, industries have the breadth or the depth of impacts on the environment, communities, or human beings as the commercial waste and recycling industry. In the city of Los Angeles, those impacts are meted out by an ever-shrinking constellation of companies. This practical reality is reflective of myriad factors, but based on our research, among the reasons is that the business of waste has simply gotten very expensive. It's an expensive, capital-intensive industry that, when done right, presents a difficult and challenging task for any company. Given that, despite a lot of noise, hyperbole, and in some cases, intentional and pure misinformation, in 2012, the reality is that there are only realistically a handful of companies engaged in recurring commercial multifamily refuse routes in the city of Los Angeles. In fact, over the past 3 years, we've reviewed all the reported receipts in LA City's commercial and multifamily waste markets. And did we find 150 or 143 companies doing this business? No. Did we even find 40 or 50 doing this business? No. Fewer than 20 companies have a majority of their business in LA's commercial and multifamily waste and recycling market. Of those, 10 companies control over 96% of that current market. Most of LA's permitted waste hauling companies, particularly the small mom and pop operations, including some in the LA County Disposal Association, we presume, do primarily construction and demolition, C&D, and roll-off service. C&D and roll-off service is exempted from the Bureau of Sanitation staff report as well as the Don't Waste LA proposal. Among the companies engaged in recurring commercial and multifamily routes are companies like AAA and Universal Waste, for example, companies that should compete in the proposed system and should compete well. But with all due respect, AAA is an exception, and the Don't Waste LA coalition takes umbrage with the notion that they are anything other than an exception. There are companies in this industry that are simply not following the rules. They're cutting every conceivable corner, and they're doing it out of necessity, if not ill will, because the system begs for it. What's more, when you peel the onion on this market, you find much more nuance and much fewer impacted participants than hauling landlord and business special interests would have you believe. You have companies like BMAC, whose primary business in LA was LAUSD. They're no longer on they no longer have that, and they're no longer a company that's going to be impacted. You have subsidiaries of bigger companies like GI Rubbish, who won't be impacted. You have companies like CalMet, Edco, Valley Vista, whose primary business is not in LA, and who won't be significantly impacted. So when you look at that list of companies that are being forwarded, what you have to really do is look at what their business model is. Look at where the majority of their business is. And yet, all of these companies are listed in the reports of companies doing business here. And still, there are companies who do significant business in LA, but who abuse their workers, cheat on safety, training, and public safety, knowingly take recyclables to landfills, and otherwise sully the environment. We disagree wholeheartedly with Mr. Saldana and Mr. Katangian's characterization of this industry and this market. Those companies, not AAA, not Universal Waste, not some of the other companies, not Pacific Coast Waste and Recycling, those companies, the companies that are cutting the corners, at best, should not be protected by the city. At worst, they should be absolutely prevented from participating in this market. But ultimately, in the end, we're talking about a small number of companies that will be impacted. The performance of the companies that do compete, and we suggest, again, strongly, that AAA should compete. The Pacific Coast should compete. The performance of those companies that do compete, and I remind you, there are different types of competition. You can have a race to the bottom, which is what we have now, and which is what a non-exclusive system where all you can do is ask for lowest common denominator standards. That's what that gets you, is a race to the bottom. Or you can create a high road system like what you can create in an exclusive franchise, where you maximize the asset. You maximize the asset of this market and establish a strategically designed RFP. The performance of those companies will be heightened by the stakes, by the possibilities, and by the contractual obligations and the accountability inherent in that system. A non-exclusive arrangement, whether you're talking about 2 or 42, chips away at the capacity of the city to hold anybody accountable. Bottom line, when you don't know where, who, when, or how trash is being picked up anywhere, and that is facially the point of a non-exclusive system, it is inherently fluid. Then whether you're talking about leaking trash juice on the street, losing plastic bags from the tops of trucks, which our friends at the Surfrider Coalition tell you is one of the biggest contributors to plastic bag pollution in the city, whether abusing workers, sending trucks out on bald tires, sending recyclables to landfills because it's cheaper in the moment, you can never know who and how it's happening, and you can never hold them accountable. Last we checked, there's no CARB cops, there's no SCA QMD cops, there's no Cal OSHA cops. So we can talk about standards in a non-exclusive system, but you have to ask yourself as a city, when you're determining your system for the next 50 years, how do you hold them accountable to those standards in a non-exclusive system? An exclusive system establishes a contractual relationship by which you hold them accountable through financial penalties, which is completely standard and precedent in cities up and down the state, whether it's just San Jose or the 55 other exclusive franchises in LA County, the 33 exclusive franchises in Orange County, or the other ones up and down the state. Ultimately, we are frankly impressed by the predictions that zero waste is so easy. We disagree. It is a complicated, difficult, arduous, and ambitious task that requires much more than glib answers or promises. We implore you, make this market work for the city rather than giving it away, as we continue to do so and as a non-exclusive system would amount to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I have all these cards to speak in the public comment period. I would like to express that I am going to be introducing several motions, so I thought I would present them at this time before the public comment so that you can take these motions into consideration. The first is, it has to do with the standards that we create in measuring the diversion. It seems as if every company has their own way of calculating it. There are numerous entities out there who suggest that they are the best at calculating it, and it seems that we have to create a baseline to be able to determine how to calculate it. As a result, I believe that we need to improve our credibility and our accounting of the recycling and diversion that's really happening. So given that, I want to recommend that we create a certification process for facilities that receive LA City's trash. I understand that the city has an interest in right under AB 939 and ultimately AB 341 obligations to require those that contract to pick up its waste to take it to facilities whose diversion standards it approves of. That makes sense to me. If we really care about getting to zero waste and diversion, we have to know that where it's going is going to be handled in a like manner. So I do have a motion to do that, and Mr. Koretz has seconded that motion. Secondly, with regard to the small haulers, having already spoken on that subject, I do have a motion that asks the Bureau to come back with a report on setting aside some of the proposed zones and also to setting aside some of the proposed zones to allow for greater competition for the small haulers and also to provide financial assistance at no cost to the city to upgrade their equipment and facilities. I think the department might be able to come up with some ideas in that regard. Thirdly, I think we need to create incentives for companies to do more than just meet the diversion standards, but to exceed them to the full extent possible. And so I believe it's important that we offer incentives to those businesses and haulers that exceed our goals for the environmental benefits. So I have a motion to direct the Bureau to develop incentives, a carrot approach, if you will, bonuses if they meet certain standards, and maybe they can even share that with some of the customers. But anyway, we would be directing the department to look at an incentive program for exceeding our minimum standards. Fourth, there are some special businesses in the city, two in particular that stand out. The film production industry is huge to Los Angeles. It's critical that we keep it here. We do not want to push it out by any means. And so we would want to ensure that the bidding standards for the studios or the bidding standards for the trash collection relative to studios, wherever those studios land in whatever district they land in, that the bidding requirements are very specific to their particular needs. In other words, they have special considerations that need to be inserted directly into the bid process so that the exclusive franchise does not take advantage of the exclusivity of the agreement and is driven to provide quality service so that we don't lose filming opportunities in Los Angeles. Mr. Good, who emerged out of that industry and he just gave a Braveheart performance, is sensitive to that, I'm sure. But also another industry that we should all be very sensitive to, and that's the hospital industry. Very diverse waste streams that emanate out of the hospital system. I think it's important for the department to develop similar standards relative to the standards of collection for hospitals, similar to the film industry. There was another motion that I intended to introduce. I didn't see it, and it has to do with location shoots. I'll just make that motion verbally. With regard to locations, we don't really believe they fall into the category of commercial, so they should be separate from this system, not exempt, but literally sort of in the C&D category. And I would like to move that the department, should we approve their direction, that they come back with a specific explanation that location shoots are not included. A definition for location shoots that explains when they're in and when they're out. So the example I use is where a TV program, for example, uses one facility year-round to essentially use as a studio, then they would be in, but if they're just doing daily shoots, they would be excluded. Anyway, the department can determine those. Those are some of my considerations for the speakers. I hope they address some of your concerns, but we're going to begin taking comments at this time, and we're going to limit everybody, if we can put the timer on 1 minute each. I do have about, I think it's about almost 40 of these. So we're looking at 40 minutes unless you speak very quickly. Let's start with Mei Lee from Midnight Mission.
It's general. I still think if you can get the other side, stay off there. Apparently not here.
Is Mei Lee present? Okay. Ann Nguyen from Central City Association. After Ann, we have Scott Schmidt. And after Scott, we have Sarah Walsh. Please step forward so they can move quickly. Ann?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ann Nguyen, representing the 2,000 members of Central City Association as well as the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. We strongly oppose moving to an exclusive franchise system. An exclusive franchise system lets the city pick winners and losers by favoring a few very large businesses at the expense of smaller, locally based haulers. It will kill small family-owned businesses and eliminate grassroots jobs, further damaging our slow economy. The city has made tremendous strides toward nurturing and promoting small businesses in Los Angeles. The mayor has always said that job creation and job growth at small businesses is going to be the engine that drives our economy. Whatever progress we've made will be reversed with this proposal. Consumers across the board will end up paying more, and almost 1,200 high-paying jobs could be eliminated. This is a bad idea, and the city's legitimate policy objectives can be met without going down this road. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alarcon and members of the committee. Scott Schmidt, founder of RecycleEverything.org. What I haven't heard in today's discussion of the San Jose model is related to the recycling requirement for source separation in the city of Los Angeles. San Jose had an innovative approach that we haven't really discussed, which was to have a certain franchise fee for landfilled waste and another franchise fee for recycled waste, which would be much lower. That led to the final result in San Jose being that everything is going to be processed for recycling. They have a wet pickup and they have a dry pickup. What is mandated by the staff report and the BPW report is to continue what we've been doing for 20 years, which is we've done well with that, but we can do better. And if you're going to get to zero waste, we have to be processing everything as recyclables. So, and requiring source separation adds that route duplication by having separate trucks to pick up trash and separate trucks to pick up recyclables. I say treat everything as recyclables. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Walsh?
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee, my name is Sarah Walsh. I'm here with the Motion Picture Association of America. As you know, the studios have long been a driving force in the Los Angeles economy, and we've also led the way for many industries on environmental issues as well. When AB 939 was enacted in 1989, MPAA companies committed to assisting government in achieving progress on recycling and diverting waste from landfills. Our companies have outstanding records in this area, collectively diverting over 73% from landfills now. Haulers are chosen specifically for their ability to accomplish these extraordinary levels of recycling, and we have developed very sophisticated operations to divert as much waste as possible. MPAA companies will be unable to choose the hauler who can achieve these goals for them under the new system. We certainly appreciate the direction to staff regarding our on-location filming, and we look forward to working with the city and the Bureau and the department to find ways to meet the needs of our industry as well as accomplish the goals of the city. Thanks so much.
Okay, Doug Arsenault. Alex Comisas. And Jane Williams.
Thank you. My name is Doug Arsenault of the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, representing more than 370 businesses, 300 of which are native Angelino small, medium-sized businesses that employ more than 75,000 Angelinos. There are two issues before this committee that have been forced into bed together: air quality and worker safety. The original, first, and primary issue has been strenuously debated over the last year, and an agreeable solution has been found: a non-exclusive franchise system that accomplishes the city's environmental goals without interfering with your constituents' employment needs. But Lane, the highly paid lobbyist of big labor, found the solution to be unacceptable for their private goal of increasing paycheck deductions to fund their lobbying and campaign contributions. They are represented here predominantly by college students paid to be human billboards. They have attended this discussion, have altered this discussion to include worker safety, a very important issue without a solid connection to air quality. We encourage you to address this issue through its own well-deserved motion. Thank you.
Alex Comisas.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alex Commissar with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. Our organization represents more than 20,000 multifamily housing providers across the area. Many of these folks are small owners with an average of 8 to 12 units. I'm here today to express our members' strong opposition to an exclusive franchise system. Our members depend on their ability to negotiate their own contracts and rates with private haulers. Our needs, like the needs of many small business owners, can be diverse and unpredictable, and an exclusive franchise would preclude us from working with our haulers individually to meet the needs of our tenants. In addition, all indications are that an exclusive franchise system would come with increased hauling costs. These increases would be hugely detrimental to many of our rent-controlled owners who are unable to recoup these costs. These owners are struggling as it is, many of them on fixed incomes. And lastly, I would emphasize what's already been said many times, which is that you can achieve many of these policy goals with a non-exclusive franchise as well as an exclusive franchise. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jane Williams. After Jane, we have Wade Hunter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Councilman Weezar, I apologize to you because I've never had the opportunity to work with you. However, in the Assembly and in the Senate, I've worked with Mr. Alarcon, Mr. Koretz, and Mr. Krikorian. And interestingly enough, about half a decade ago, many of the environmental justice groups in the city of Los Angeles set out to change energy policy. And we have been very successful. And so the thing that strikes me from sitting and listening to all of the testimony today is that for the first time, really, in the city of Los Angeles' history, you have a unique opportunity to actually look at creating a waste infrastructure. Now, I am not for or against this exclusive franchise issue, but looking at the environmental impacts and the footprint that the city of Los Angeles and its waste sheds and its hauling and where its trash comes and where its trash goes and how it's handled, this is the opportunity, and that's really why you must do, at the earliest opportunity, a CEQA document. Thank you.
CEQA, okay. Wade Hunter.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Wade Hunter. I'm the president of the North Valley Coalition Concerned Citizens, Inc. We believe the consideration of exclusive franchise is a mistake, and we oppose such a plan. Believe it would contravene the intent of the Renew LA program, which would establish alternative technologies in each of the 6 waste sheds, including a 7th in the city of Glendale. Sanitation was given the job of reducing LA's trash down to 500 tons a day, which they have not done. And now we're talking about potentially thousands of tons of new trash being dumped on us if Republic, for instance, is awarded one of the huge waste sheds proposed, and when they will bring the trash to Sunshine Canyon. Even with a 5-year contract in hand, sanitation's been unwilling or incapable of ensuring that the public and surrounding communities are protected. And in 2011, 20% of all the complaints to the South Coast Air Quality Management District were about Sunshine Canyon landfill. Indeed, the complaints at Sunshine Canyon landfill are 10 times higher than all the other 15 landfills combined. I'd like to submit this to you, please.
Thank you. Linda Delp.
Thank you. And we would like fully IR.
Thank you. Andrea Nichols and Ed Gutierrez.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. I'm Linda Delp. I'm the director of the UCLA Labor Occupational Safety and Health Program. And we are a nationally recognized center that's focused for many years on promoting worker health and safety through teaching, education, research, and policy change, and for promoting more recently good, green, and safe jobs. We are a member of the Don't Waste LA Coalition and support the exclusive franchise system for LA's commercial multifamily waste collection. An exclusive franchise system will create greater accountability to the city, to workers, to the public, and to the environment. It's not that there aren't regulations already. There are regulations regarding the safety of trucks. There are regulations regarding workers who sort recycling, and it is employers' responsibility, whether they're waste haulers or other employers, to comply with those regulations. But we don't have a good system to ensure that employers, including haulers, are complying until it's too late. We have, my time's up? Okay.
Finish your sentence, please.
Until it's too late, as we've seen by workers already getting injured on the job, becoming ill, and in certain cases even dying on the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Nichols? Andrea?
Hi, I'm Andrea Nichols. I'm the Health and Safety Coordinator at the LA County Federation of Labor and UCLA Loesch, and my job is to prevent work-related illnesses, injuries, and fatalities among workers. I've interviewed dozens of commercial and multifamily waste workers in LA, and I'm here to ask for a system of accountability. The proposal before you for an exclusive franchise is the only way to bring accountability to our multifamily and commercial system. Recently, I've interviewed the workers at American Reclamation, where I found serious safety violations that are now the basis of a formal Cal OSHA complaint. And the conditions that I found at American Reclamation are actually very similar to the conditions that ended up killing the Ramirez brothers, Armando and Eladio. And those conditions are not isolated to just these two facilities. There's facilities here in LA where employers take similar shortcuts that could cost even more lives. And too many of these facilities exist. A system that allows these things to happen is one that lacks accountability, no matter how many rules are on the book. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Gutierrez. After Ed, we have Eric DeSaube.
Hello, my name is Ed Gutierrez, and I'm a LA resident, currently living in a multi-unit apartment building in the Pico Robertson area. And although it's been some time since I've been a college student, I am here today to express my strong support for Don't Waste LA's exclusive franchise system. When I moved here almost 4 years ago from the Bay Area, I was shocked. I was shocked to realize that despite the amount of recyclables generated by my neighbors and the fellow residents in my apartment building, the landlord was able to opt out of ensuring that recycling services were available to us tenants. I'm a firm believer that recycling is a basic duty of each of us toward helping ensure a healthier environment. And to this day, I'm dumbfounded how it is that my neighbors in nearby buildings are able to take advantage of recycling services, while I have essentially been given no choice but to act as a scofflaw in order to fulfill what I believe is a moral obligation as a waste producer. Twice a week, I gather my recyclables, take them out to my neighbors. Bins, empty bins, right? Something's got to happen. Thanks.
Thank you. Eric DeSaube, or?
You're right the first time. I'm Eric DeSaube, president of the Delray Neighborhood Council in CD11. The Delray Neighborhood Council voted earlier this spring overwhelmingly to support the proposal before you for an exclusive franchise because our community wanted a system that minimizes the impacts of waste hauling on our neighborhoods and our streets while maximizing the environmental and health benefits we all get by recycling. It's absurd and unacceptable that so many of our residents and business owners don't have recycling service. Delray is home to many small businesses and multifamily dwellings where there's no option to recycle because recycling is only offered as an auxiliary to basic waste services, and frankly it costs too much. Delray wants a system that uses the fewest trucks to service the most people, and that can only happen with an exclusive franchise system. We want fair rates and better recycling service, and this exclusive franchise system is the one that will ensure both. Thank you.
Thank you. Gopi Shah, John Guevara, and Candace Kim.
Good afternoon. My name is Gopi Shah, and I'm here on behalf of Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC is a member of the Don't Waste LA Coalition and is fully supportive of moving forward with an exclusive franchise waste system, as the Bureau of Sanitation and HF&H reports recommend. An exclusive franchise system has been shown to have the most aggressive diversion rates, highest standards for accountability, and the smallest overall environmental footprint. We can reduce our dependence on space-hogging landfills that are expensive to maintain and reduce pollution from greenhouse gases and toxic emissions. As one of the most polluted air basins in the country, Los Angeles depends on stricter standards, oversight and enforcement, and transparency in the waste industry to ensure a better future for all. The current system perpetuates environmental injustices against disadvantaged communities of color in the San Fernando Valley. A myriad of negative public health impacts such as respiratory illness, cancer, noise, and blight also plague these communities. A new system is needed now. NRDC believes an exclusive franchise system is best for the residents of Los Angeles and is the best system to achieve the city's tremendous goal of zero waste. Thank you.
Thank you. John Guevara.
Hi, Honorable Chair and Committee. My name is John Edward Guevara. I'm a UCLA graduate student and more than just a human billboard. I support Don't Waste LA, and I support the exclusive franchise system because recycling should be available for everyone and not just a few. And here's my recycling story. My first apartment didn't have a recycling bin because, as I was told by my landlord, there was not enough space. So my roommate and I collected our recyclables in our living room. We reused as much as we could, but at the end of the week, we would have several bins filled with stuff that needed to be disposed. Most of the times, we would mix our recyclables with our trash, or dump them in the neighbors' bins, offer them to the people with shopping carts that came by on trash day, or worse, take my recyclables to my friend's place down the street. See, at my apartment, I had a lack of choice, and I was doing everything I could to try to recycle or reuse. But as a working student, the cycle was stressful. You see, the demand is there, but sometimes the recycling infrastructure is not always. At my current apartment, I have the opportunity to recycle. So I'm here today to speak for my fellow classmates and to support an exclusive franchise system that every tenant, student or not, will have the option to recycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Candace Kim. After Candace, we have Walt, and I cannot read the last name, from the Homeroom Art Gallery, and then Molly Greenwood. Candace.
Good afternoon. My name is Candace Kim, and I am here on behalf of the Coalition for Clean Air and its many members that reside in the city of Los Angeles. We strongly support the proposal for an exclusive franchise system because it's what's best for our environment, for our air, and for our city. As HF&H found, an exclusive system would result in the fewest number of commercial refuse vehicles and minimize the environmental footprint of solid waste operations by decreasing truck traffic, vehicle emissions, pavement impacts, and noise. Exclusive franchising will guarantee that all trucks are subject to South Coast AQMD Fleet Rule 1193 and will ensure that companies are held accountable for meeting those standards. We must adopt a new system that will result in fewer trucks, decreased emissions, and greater overall accountability, most importantly, for the benefit of public health and for the environment.
Hello, I'm Walter Gorecki, speaking on behalf of Homeroom in favor of the exclusive franchise system. We're a mixed-use creative space and gallery. We share a building with residences and several other commercial buildings, a convenience store. We currently don't have the option to recycle. We don't have the resources to afford the recycling system, and all of the residences who are in Section 8 housing don't either. Unfortunately, most of our recycling that isn't redeemable, such as cans and bottles, ends up going straight to landfills. It's really unfortunate. At home, I'm a pretty big stickler for recyclable materials, but in my business practices, I'm unable to be. So we're supporting the proposal for an exclusive franchise system because we need a system that will ensure the businesses and residents in our neighborhood can have access to recycling and that there's fair accountability for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ben Kowalczyk. I believe that's the name you couldn't read. I am a resident of Los Angeles and a student organizer based out of Occidental College in Eagle Rock. I spend the bulk of my time outside the classroom volunteering, not paid, working with various community-based organizations on economic and environmental justice issues. I've seen firsthand the incredible breadth of the problems that are present in the current commercial waste management system. I have mapped out business districts where 5 different trash haulers are serving the same commercial block with trucks that clog the roads and foul the air. I've talked to small business owners who do not have access to recycling or cannot afford it and do not want to continue to subsidize the cost of waste for big business. I've marched with the workers in this industry who have been denied the right to safe working conditions. We cannot be selective in addressing these problems. Only a strong exclusive franchise system will allow us to ensure standards necessary to make this industry work for all Angelenos. I am here with students from Occidental, and I work with students throughout LA. We will constantly mobilize around this issue free of charge because we care about economic and environmental equality, unlike these folks that seem really well dressed and I think are paid. Thank you.
Holly?
Hello, I'm Molly Greenwood, and I'm a founder and co-owner of the Secret Goldfish Baking Company. We strongly support the proposal for an exclusive franchise in our commercial waste system because it's the system that will allow for the greatest protection of people and the environment, and it will provide the best service to businesses like ours who want to do the right thing. 2 of our core values as a business are that we are environmentally sustainable and that the ingredients we put into our food are not coming by way of business practices that are harmful to our planet or to the people who produce them. We're fair trade certified. So when we recently moved our business to the kitchen we're in now and we were told that everything we threw away would go into one bin, we were unhappy. We can't know whether our recyclables are going where they need to go or whether they're in fact going to a landfill. We're also appalled by some of the conditions in which waste sorters and drivers are forced to work. But frankly, at this point in the life of our business, we can't afford to go anyplace else. As far as we're concerned, the companies who don't care for their workers and for the environment are harming all of us, and we must have a system that holds them accountable. Thank you.
Molly? I just had one question. You don't bake goldfish, do you?
No goldfish are harmed.
What is Secret Goldfish Baking Company?
It's named after The Catcher in the Rye. I'm an English major nerd.
Okay. I still don't have a clue what you're doing over there, but congratulations. Okay, Terry Jackson. Kabira Stokes. And Jeremy Drake.
Good afternoon. I'd like to get the record straight. I haven't been in college since 1985 when I got up out of there, so I'm not getting paid for this. But what I am is a landlord, and I have a commercial building that's located in the Leimert Park area. And I do strongly support all the franchise and that's there before us because as I went out to try to get, landlord, we're always concerned about pricing. My pricing was so bad that I had to, my recycled price, I had to get rid of it. And I started using my neighbors. But my other neighbors only paying $72, I'm paying $102. So there was a big difference there. Because my other neighbor, he has a lot of property, and I had to pick up the slack for what he didn't pay. I paid for it. I strongly support what's going on here today. It's one that is very well needed, and I don't have a negotiating power like the big boys do over here. I'm just a very small man here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kabira?
Good afternoon. My name is Kabira Stokes. I'm the owner of Isidore Electronics Recycling. We're located just east of downtown. We recycle electronic equipment in an environmentally correct, socially conscious, and secure manner. And we're here today to support an exclusive franchise system because it's the only kind of system that will facilitate the kinds of innovative solutions we need to deal with the stuff that we all throw away. Right now, for us, there is no clear and consistent stream of e-waste that we can access. We scramble all over town. It is not ideal. The HF&H study and the Bureau report make it clear that the most aggressive, efficient, state-of-the-art system for diversion is an exclusive franchise. It'll lead to long-term planning, comprehensive public education, which we need in this city, clearer, more consistent commodity streams, and the incentives and the accountability needed to get away from the blue bin addresses everything myth. It is not that simple. In a non-exclusive system, we won't be able to do any of these things, and we will have bare minimum standards. Isidore Recycling, we exist because we believe we can't sustain ourselves by settling for less, and we can't do better without real change in our approach to waste management. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Drake, Jim Smith, and Ben Kowalczyk.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Drake. I'm a member of the Sierra Club Zero Waste Committee. and I'm also the club's lead on organics issues in the state. Sierra Club believes that to get to zero waste, we will need to figure out how to stop throwing compostable organics into the landfills. According to the EPA, food scraps and food soiled paper represent the single largest category of waste we send to landfills. Even considering the Bureau of Sanitation's current programs to divert that material, close to 1 million tons of food scraps from the city of LA is being burned and buried in incinerators and landfills every year. The good news is that we can manage this waste in a responsible and even innovative way. We have 4 of the most productive agricultural counties here in Southern California, and we're throwing away a real opportunity to turn our food scraps and other organics into rich soil for local farmers. There are challenges to processing these food scraps at the level we need, but the only way to get there is if we take the most aggressive approach. An exclusive franchise system is the best way to get us there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Smith, Political Coordinator for Teamsters Local 396, representing workers in the waste and recycling industry throughout the Los Angeles region. We have heard a lot of incredibly informative discussion and dialogue today concerning the critical need for higher standards and accountability in this industry. But what often gets lost in this discussion is the crucial watchdog and whistleblower roles played by those who are on the front lines of this industry, the men and women who spend their entire working day picking up, transporting, processing, and sorting our waste and recyclables. The workers you have heard from today, Alex and Carla, are just 2 courageous examples of this. But unfortunately, for every Alex and Carla, there are scores of other workers in the industry who want to come forward but are afraid for their livelihoods if they do speak out. If higher standards and accountability are indeed our goals, then alongside an exclusive franchise system, which we support, it is equally imperative that we create a system where workers in the industry can speak out, free from intimidation or fear of retaliation, anytime they experience or witness something that breaches those standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Kowalczyk.
I spoke out of turn. I apologize.
Okay. Now I figured out who that other guy was. I'm sorry. Okay. Kurt Beer. Maybe I'm not reading it right. Yep, still Kurt. Wade Hunter, you spoke already, didn't you? Thank you, Wade. 1 minute is enough. Sabrina Bornstein, our final speaker. Can I commend everybody for your brevity and staying on time? It's highly unusual, but you all came prepared, and I want to thank you on behalf of the committee. Now, don't mess it all up.
Good afternoon. My name is Sabrina Bornstein. I'm a policy analyst with Don't Waste LA and the LA Alliance for a New Economy. And I'm actually not a highly paid policy analyst, unfortunately. And now I think it's important to make a distinction between standards and the type of system. I was happy to hear today a clear consensus about the need to raise the bar and to raise standards. Standards for clean fleets, more diversion, and good jobs. But raising the bar will require investment in new trucks and high-quality, cleanest and greenest equipment. So that brings us to the choice of the type of system, non-exclusive or exclusive. And contrary to a comment made earlier today by ACE, there are unique benefits to an exclusive system. An exclusive system can help mitigate and control costs of new standards, not raise them. It can make sure that there are opportunities for investment and financing of new equipment. And finally, and very importantly, it allows for the highest level of accountability and partnership. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Could I ask the department to step forward once more? Mr. Weezer, you have some questions?
I just have one final question, and that is, we heard some testimony today with respect to the rates that may be charged and whether some of the customers will be paying more or less. And I just was thinking how, and I know this is can still be worked out and perhaps get more detail as we develop the policy if we move in that direction, but what will the department do to set rates, and how will those rates be set, if we would set them at all?
We would, Enrique Zaldivar, Director of Sanitation, Councilman, in the event of setting the rates, they would be set after following a competitive process, which would be the RFP, by which companies will propose a service level in response to the requirements and the parameters set forth in the RFP, and then they will place a cost in their proposal from which we would not only evaluate but eventually also negotiate. And so it'll be a negotiated price that will lead us to a set of rates that would apply to certain predetermined and pre-specified service levels.
Now, would it be possible that, let's say, some companies can charge less than a certain amount even after we've evaluated what's the average cost for a customer? And would it be possible to go to a model where we have a cap as opposed to us getting in the business of setting pricing, so that we allow some flexibility for the industry to set those costs amongst themselves and the customer, but all we are concerned about is a cap about not to go above a certain amount? Would that work?
I think it would. I'm just thinking it through because that's a very interesting concept. I think it could work, Councilman.
I think a proposal of that nature is possible, but before we move forward with any additional recommendations on the terms of the RFP, we are initiating internal to the department our own assessment on the potential impact on rates. HF&H is going to move forward with their evaluation of other jurisdictions and what the proposed franchise systems in those jurisdictions have meant on rates, and based on their findings, we will work on developing a rate structure, and which may or may not include a cap.
Okay, if we could get a report back as if this moves forward in whatever process, so that we get a report back on if we could have a cap in the rate structure rather than us just setting a direct rate, and what are the pros and cons of doing that, and if that meets the goals of the objectives of this policy, should we move forward, and what that may look like. I think it'd be interesting to see. And one thing that I find it difficult as well as a legislative body at times is us setting rates, or, I mean, I certainly wouldn't want, even if we move forward and we do set rates, it might be a good idea that we do that administratively. You know, when it gets at the legislative level, it gets political, it gets politicized, and, you know, if we do move toward a structure where we are setting rates, that's another question that I would have, if that could be made administratively rather than having it go through council, or if there's some legal requirement that it go through council, why that's the case. If we could just get a report back on some of those areas of setting rates. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me do that. Sure.
Okay, thank you. I want to recognize a number of documents that we've received just for the record. We have a letter from the Motion Picture Association of America to the chairman of the committee, me. We have a letter from SWAPE, Technical Consultation, Data Analysis, and Litigation Support for the Environment. It's a letter to Stephen Miles, Miles Law Group. I don't know how this came to me, but it's here, so I'm going to introduce it for the record. We also have a report from the South Coast Air Quality Management District, or at least I should say a graph. I think these are documents that are tied to a letter that was sent to the commissioners at Public Works. It's a letter from the Miles Law Group. I'm not sure whether these are connected. I just wanted to mention them for the record. I want to, yes, Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, I have a question, if it's in order.
Please.
We've heard from more than one source, both here and elsewhere, that many of our current haulers may be landfilling rather than recycling some of their recyclables. Do we have a sense of whether this accusation is true? And if it's true, how can we improve that? I mean, it's good to have a high diversion rate in theory, but if in reality some of our recyclables are actually being landfilled at the end of the day, we ideally would want to have more control over the waste stream until we actually know that it is placed where it belongs.
Well, in response to that, there is no tracking system in place for whether a waste hauler has a recycling program or not. Also, the permit system as it stands right now does not require recycling. So the notion that potential recyclable materials are being landfilled is one of the main things we want to address through the system. So we do get reports on an annual basis. It's simply telling us where they take the material and what that material type is. That's the only information we have from the haulers at this time.
So even haulers who set up some sort of bins for recyclables, if they were then taking some of them or all of them and landfilling them, would we have any knowledge of that?
No.
And is there any way we could track that short of setting up this system?
Well, short of setting up the system, one of the intrinsic difficulties of the system now is waste haulers' businesses change on a fairly regular basis. So it becomes difficult to track waste haulers, who they're associated with as far as business, what programs they have. It's one of the difficulties that we face right now is the actual gathering that data, tracking that data. It changes quite often.
Now, if we created this kind of a system, then how would we actually track them and hold them to the commitment to actually recycle recyclables that they pick up?
Alex, did you want?
Well, Councilman, when we speak of standards, we of course would hold the haulers to the same standards that we hold ourselves, and that is that all of the recyclable loads, and that's true of sanitation. We treat them exactly as that, recyclables that at any cost, we always make sure that they get recycled. So that will be one of the requirements, and one of the requirements with penalties associated, I am sure, for anyone who purports to be collecting recyclables and landfilling them. So that in our world is a crime.
So just as a follow-up, in light of the chair's motion to certify the processing facilities to ensure that they are meeting our diversion rates, that would be under the proposed exclusive franchise system, the contractual mechanism by which we would be able to hold these processing facilities accountable to those diversion standards.
Okay, Mr. Krikorian. Oh, you know what? You know what? I think you're going to have to use one of these mics. We are on autopilot, and apparently your mic is not included in that mix.
Thank you. Is that some kind of a hint?
It's we're short-staffed, and they had to run to go do something, and
all right.
So we're on our own.
That point, the accountability comes primarily from having the waste directed to particular facilities where you can do the monitoring, I trust then, right? So that right now you don't know where it's going. Somebody picks up on a corner, it could be going to well outside the city and being dumped in a landfill or something else. But when you have a franchising system, you're able to mandate that they take it to a particular sorting or transfer facility, right?
That's correct.
Well, by virtue of the franchise agreement, they would have designated subcontractors, which we would then, by virtue of the council member's motion, certify to be complying with certain diversion standards. And that's really how the line of accountability exists.
Right. And so if there's ever found to be a violation of that they're diverting it to someplace in El Monte or something, that they run the risk of losing the franchise, potentially.
Right. There would be liquidated damages and other penalty schemes, and ultimately potential termination of their franchise agreement with the city.
Okay, so wouldn't that accountability mechanism be precisely the same and precisely as effective if there were 1 or 2 or 4 franchisees in a given zone?
Well, the degree of accountability or the difficulty of ensuring compliance, of course, is proportional to the number of haulers that we would have to monitor. It's true what you said, Councilman.
No, not if they're going to the same facilities.
Well,
you have to monitor the facility. You know when the haulers are coming in. If it's a set number of transfer facilities, you know when the haulers are coming in. That's where you're doing your monitoring.
Correct. That's assuming they're all going to that facility. The question, though, is whether they're not going to the facility.
Right, but what I'm saying is, and as the Commissioner just pointed out, the accountability is on the existence of the franchise, which you have the power then to revoke and destroy their business. Right? Yes. Sure. So that's true, whether it's an exclusive franchise agreement or a not quite so exclusive franchise agreement. If it's 2 haulers rather than 1 hauler, but they're franchisees of the city, you still have the same authority, don't you?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions of committee members? Yes, Mr. Kretz.
It's been suggested a few times here and elsewhere that we could accomplish the same goals by implementing some of the pieces of this, but not making it an exclusive franchise. What do we lose by making it an exclusive franchise? By making it a non-exclusive franchise in addressing some of the things we're trying to address?
One of the things that through our research that we do believe that we'll be able to lose is potential for diversion and real diversion from landfills. One of the things we talked about in our staff report, which we think is a key component, is actually holding waste haulers to not just a diversion rate, even though we're going to be certifying facilities, but actually hold them to disposal. So we would cap and set what's able to be disposed out of any given area, and truly reducing the amount of waste going to landfills. In a system where you have multiple haulers operating, businesses are coming and going under those waste haulers, there's no way to set any standards on the amount of material that would be disposed of. That's one item we would see. There's some concepts of routing and routing efficiencies. When it comes to routing, such as the San Jose model, you can start looking at things as wet and dry routing, where your primary paper is separated from other type of organic matter. That becomes an easier task when you can maximize your routing. When waste haulers are spread all over the city, that type of routing, first of all, becomes very inefficient. And through those inefficiencies, we don't anticipate being able to get the same level of diversion. So from a diversion point of view, we definitely see that from a non-exclusive franchise, we'd not get to the same diversion levels that we could under an exclusive franchise from a diversion point of view.
Okay.
Thank you. I think at this time it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to either support or not support the department's direction. Mr. Kretz, are you?
I'd like to introduce such a motion, which I have here, and I would like to move that pursuant to state mandates and the city's own goals to achieve zero waste, the Bureau of Sanitation is developing a report on implementing an exclusive franchise commercial and multifamily waste program to address the issue. We reviewed the Bureau's report as summarized at the hearing today of the Ad Hoc Committee on Waste Reduction and recommend that the Council support the completion of the Bureau's report on implementing an exclusive franchise commercial and multifamily waste program for submittal to the Council.
Hey, do I have a second? No, we don't.
I could pass it on.
Okay, this is great. To follow up on the chairman's initial comments, what was before
you should see it from
today
this view.
yes, I'm sure it's great. The initial agendized item was the report on the San Jose program, but this is requesting that we complete the work that the department has done to simply report to council. And I think pursuant to some of the comments that we've had about the need for an EIR, the number of alternative proposals that might be considered in an EIR, I'm fine with moving forward with this report.
Do you want to second the motion?
But I think as part of that report, we should also have the department report back on the issues that were raised today in this hearing and the issues that would need to reasonably be raised in order to complete an EIR as well, including alternative proposals to the exclusivity of this franchise agreement.
Yes, by virtue of the responsibilities of this ad hoc committee, all steps in the process would include passing through this committee. So that would be part of the process.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
And so you're moving this to council. Are you moving it directly to council, or
no.
Because we have
no,
a
we
unique
didn't.
committee that we
No, we're not. The motion merely recommends to the council, but it would go to the E&E committee first.
And if I may also request that we get a CAO-CLA joint report on this for the committee as well, please. That's in the works, but we're waiting for that. So
the Board of Public Works report was transmitted to the mayor. He has transmitted it to the CAO's office for full reporting, but
Charles Modick with the CLA's office. The actual board report is not before the council at this time or this committee. So as I understand it, this committee's actions is recommending that the CAO and continue its review, transmit that review to council, have sanitation issue reports that respond to all the motions that were raised in this committee that will then be considered concurrently with the actual board report and the CEO analysis of that. Those reports will come to this committee, and then they will go to the Energy Environment Committee before they go to City Council.
Those reports will first come to this committee,
yes,
and then to E&E. And so
correct.
that's what I'm asking. With the motion today, moving those items, are they report backs to this committee, or are they being referred to E&E?
Everything that goes to this committee by virtue of the purview of the E&E committee also goes to Energy Environment. So
okay, let me ask that one more time.
Be specific. Does it go to E&E right after this?
Yeah, the CAO and CLA report still has to come to this committee, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the motion that was proposed today, my question is, and maybe you're not the correct person to ask, but let me ask the maker of the motion or the chair, you're moving this item and questions to come back to this committee or to E&E?
It will go to E&E, but the recommendation is directed at the council.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is the standard practice when it goes to multiple committees.
Right. So during our report back, it will be inclusive of all of the various motions that have been introduced today, but also our vision is that they will be simultaneous with the CAO report as well as the economic study and some other additional recommendations by the Bureau.
Yes, I haven't introduced the other motions, so let me go about doing that. They have been co-presented, the sign for co-presentation as well as seconds, so I would like to introduce those. But first I am seconding Mr. Koretz's motion. So let me go through this process again. Mr. Koretz and I are co-presenting the motion to, I'm not going to go through all of the intent language, but instructing the Bureau of Sanitation to include in its report to the Council on the proposed new system for commercial and multifamily property waste to have a requirement that future LA City commercial and family waste franchise holders take the city's non-source separated commercial and multifamily waste only to certified processing facilities, and that those facilities be certified by the Board of Public Works to ensure maximum diversion in service pursuant to AB 939 and AB 341. Now, I don't have a second on. Do I need a second when it's co-presented? Is there a city attorney around? Was that the city attorney? What was that? Do I need a second when we have co-presenters?
You can, although it will just be the action of this committee. So if it's on the unanimous consent of this committee, then that would go forward as a committee's recommendation.
That's an assumption. Okay. The second motion, and I'll move forward before we take the votes on these motions. Again, I am just reading the actual motion. We therefore instruct the Bureau of Sanitation to include in its report to Council on the proposed new system for commercial and multifamily property waste a proposal to designate a certain number of the city's proposed exclusive zones as small enterprise zones designed and targeted to provide competitive opportunity for small hauling companies. We also instruct the Bureau to include in its report a proposal to assist and facilitate small companies selected for small enterprise zones in securing loans or other capital assistance to facilitate and make realistic their participation in the exclusive franchise system. The assistance must come at no financial cost to the city. That motion was introduced by myself and Mr. Krikorian and seconded by Paul Koretz. The Bureau of Senate, the third one is we therefore instruct the Bureau of Sanitation to include in its report to the Council on the proposed new system for commercial and multifamily waste program incentives and similar programs to businesses that meet or exceed the goals of the proposed program. That is introduced by myself and Mr. Krikorian and seconded by Mr. Koretz. This one is related to the film industry. We therefore instruct the Bureau of Sanitation to seek input from the filming industry and include in its report to the Council one specific directions in the request for proposals or bids to respond to the needs of studios, including such factors as quality of service, timeliness, and responsiveness to the specific demands of studios' work. 2, the exemption of temporary filming locations from the proposal due to the temporary nature of the work sites. That was co-presented by Mr. Koretz and myself and seconded by Mr. Huizar. And finally, a motion introduced by myself and seconded by Mr. Huizar that says we therefore instruct the Bureau of Sanitation to seek input from the hospitals and the hospital industry to include in its report to the Council specific directions in the request for proposals or bids to respond to the needs of hospitals, including such factors as quality of service, timeliness, and responsiveness to the specific waste demands of the hospitals. Indeed, I believe those discussions have been ongoing between the department and those industries, and there may be others that emerge, but for the time being, these are the motions before us. So on the general motion to recommend that the Council support the completion of the Bureau's report on implementing an exclusive franchise commercial and multifamily waste program for submittal to the Council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any aye? Any opposed? Okay, I didn't. Did aye? Okay, did you say aye? Okay, I'm sorry. These microphones are not. It's either the microphones or my ears. I don't know. Okay, so that is unanimous. On the motion regarding the certification of the processing facilities, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion is unanimous. I didn't say aye, but I certainly meant it. On the motion with regard to small enterprise zones to allow small haulers to be competitive in this system that is proposed, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did he say aye? You say aye? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you. That is unanimous. With regard to the department investigating incentives and similar programs to help businesses meet or exceed the goals of the proposed program. All in favor say aye. Aye. That is unanimous. And with regard to the filming industry, as read, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. And finally, with regard to hospitals, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion is unanimous as well. I want to thank everybody for their participation, and I would encourage you to continue to participate. This is a dynamic process. We are certainly not declaring an exclusive franchise. We have a lot more work to do, and your input is valuable to us in the process. I also want to personally thank all the organizations that contacted my office and presented directly to me. This was very helpful in allowing me to clarify my positions on this. Yes.
Mr. Chair, just as a matter of process, there was a request from Councilmember Huizar for a report back on the cap of the rates as opposed to a flat rate structure, does that need to be a motion, or do we just accept that as a direction to the Bureau?
Direction.
I just want clarity.
Either way, you're going to have to go through Weezer. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.